workshop, and we should be recording now. Welcome everyone. I'm going to share my screen here and we can get started. All right. Awesome. So welcome to the 10th annual school recycling workshop. This is the 5th time we're doing this virtually all together. So for those of you that I haven't had the pleasure of meeting yet, I'm Vandercook, and I'm the Dakota County School Recycling Program Coordinator. I'm so happy you're here today. The goal of this workshop is to provide creative solutions and resources to assist schools in reducing waste and improving their recycling programs. So we're going to kick off the workshop today learning about highlights from schools that use stainless steel products in the cafeteria and issues and solutions for shredded paper. And then later we're going to learn about state contracts available to schools, cafeteria liquids collection improvements, and some more school recycling resources. So we're not going to have a breakout session this year for small group discussion. We're going to use our Zoom tools for interaction, questions, and sharing insights as a large group. And I encourage you, in order to stay engaged, to take breaks, stretch your legs when needed, maybe bring your computer with you to get more coffee, just make sure you're kind of able to keep yourself in the workshop, because I know 3 hours can be a long time. And 3 hours is the kind of continuing education unit time that we've been approved from the Minnesota Board of School Administrators, as well as the Minnesota School Nutrition Association. So I've been asked to verify attendance, and since we're not in person, at some point in the workshop, I'll just take a quick tally of who's in the virtual room. And then if you reach out to me after the workshop, I can happily email you those certificates for your CEU credits. So if you need that, feel free, and I'll say that again at the end of the workshop, to shoot me an email. You can see the agenda here on my slide, and you may notice our workshop goes until 11:35 because introductions don't count for the CEU part, so I had to make up an extra 5 minutes. We're recording this workshop currently, and the recording as well as the presentation slides will be shared on our webpage following the workshop. After each speaker, our plan is to take a few questions, and then we're also going to have time for questions during the Q&A section after the first panel on the stainless steel products. And then if there's additional questions that we don't have time for, each presenter's contact information should be on the last slide of their presentation, so you can reach out to them individually to learn more. So my colleague Kirsten's here. She's going to be assisting with providing our polls and compiling any questions from the chat, and is going to just briefly explain a few Zoom meeting reminders and tips for us.
All right. Well, yeah, I just wanted to echo what Allie and Renee said. Thanks, everybody, for being here today. My name is Kirsten. I have the pleasure to work with Allie and Renee. I manage the environmental education program, so I'm helping out on the Zoom and the technical side of things. So just a really quick run through of how Zoom works. When you log into the meeting today, you are being muted. Don't take any offense to this. It's just because it's distracting as a speaker to have somebody like rustling papers in the background. So if we hear something going on, I might go through and mute you. But if you do have a question, we do want you to unmute yourself, ask, and then mute yourself again. It's actually really engaging as a speaker to have somebody ask questions like as you're talking, because then you know that people are actually listening. So that's great. We just recommend that you limit your distractions. So what I mean by that is, as we are presenting on Zoom, it's really easy to, like, oh, I wonder if I got that email I've been waiting for. What's happening on social media? Take the time and just really focus in, take notes. We know that's tricky being online, but and we miss some things being in person. So just really try to focus in on the content that Allie worked so hard to pull together for you today. And we would love any sort of interaction that you have. So like I said, unmute yourself if you have a question. Also use the chat. I think probably most people are familiar with how to use the chat. I would love to see you all practicing using the chat. I've been a part of Zoom meetings where people are like, what's your favorite sandwich? Enter in the chat. You don't have to do that, but I will be watching the chat. Allie will be watching the chat when she's not speaking. We love questions in the chat. Also, your reactions should be on the bottom panel, the toolbar there too. Speakers love to see, you know, after they present, like the clapping hands emoji. We can all practice with that right now. Little clapping hands. It's just kind of a way for us to break up the day just a little bit more. Excellent. Love the reactions. Very cool. So thanks again for being here today. Like I said, I'll be in the background kind of answering questions as I can, providing resources, things like that. So I think that's all I have for you. Take it away, Allie.
Awesome. Thanks, Kirsten. So we're going to just kick it off with a quick practice poll. So I think Kirsten's going to activate that for us. So we're going to have a few polls just to stay engaged throughout the workshop. So when you see the poll come up on your screen, you can answer the question. And our first question is, what do you find the scariest of these options? More exciting than, is a hot dog a sandwich, I think.
And you should just see one poll, right, Allie?
Yes.
Okay. It might have launched all 3 questions, so I'm sorry.
Oh, I think I see the second one, but that's okay.
Okay.
Okay, so just a couple more minutes. It looks like heights is winning. And then maybe we'll just end it whenever we think we've made it to 70%. We can do it.
Do 3 more seconds. 1, 2, 3. All right, end poll. And then I'll share the results for the first one.
So it looks like heights is our winner. Small spaces close second. Only 6% of us said work is the scariest, or what we're finding the scariest. So thank you for sharing. That was our one practice, and then we have a few more. So I know we may have launched other ones, but we will just jump into that second poll. So I don't know if Kirsten, we can launch that second one maybe again. Just the number 2 question of, and if it's on your screen, maybe you already answered it. So our second poll question is, what type of cafeteria tray is your school or district currently using? So we have the options here of paper, molded fiber, styrofoam, reusable plastic, meaning melamine or polycarbonate, and then reusable steel. This will lead us into our first discussion here in our first panel.
And if you all answered the first time, just answer again the second time. Sorry about our technical difficulties.
We're getting there. We got this.
We're getting there. Yeah, it's gonna be great.
Awesome.
All right, ready? 30%, 40%. Okay.
Yeah. So we had for our number 1, it looks like actually reusable steel. I don't know how that happened. That's exciting. Maybe that is the case. And then paper molded fiber was the close second. So that'd be maybe a compostable tray, you know, or some sort of other paper tray that might not be BPI certified, but still is paper. So awesome. Okay. Well, great. I think we're going to jump into our first panel. This is a good segue to get started. And I'm going to start by introducing Manasa. She pulls up her presentation. So our first speaker will be Dr. Manasa Mantravadi, a pediatrician and entrepreneur who founded Ahimsa, a line of safe, sustainable, science-backed stainless steel foodware for kids. She launched the company in 2019 after learning about the harmful effects of chemicals in plastic on children's health from the American Academy of Pediatrics. Dr. Mantravadi holds a Doctor of Medicine from Indiana University School of Medicine and completed her pediatric residency at Northwestern University, Lurie Children's Hospital, and her fellowship in endocrinology at Cincinnati Children's Hospital. She's now on the Council for Environmental Health and Climate Change and the Council for School Health at the American Academy of Pediatrics. And in 2019, she received the Physician Mentor of the Year Award at Indiana State or Indiana University School of Medicine, the largest medical school in the country. And in 2021, she was named to Forbes' Next 1000 Entrepreneur, a list of rising business owners in the USA. So if that's not enough, most recently, she was also named in the Inc. magazine's 2024 Female Founders 250 list. So take it away, Manasa. I think you should have presenting powers, but I'll stop sharing my screen here, just in case you're not able to share until I stop sharing.
We might need to unmute.
Can you see my screen?
Oh, yes.
Yes. Okay. Awesome. Well, those were a lot of titles, but I'm at home, I'm called Mom. So that's like the most important title for me. So thanks for that nice introduction. My name is Manasa, like Monica, but not. I'm really here today to talk about kind of the health impact that school nutrition can have on children, and kind of a little bit about my journey. Let's see. Oh, hang on. I think I need to use my there. Okay. This is a much, when pictures on the internet float around, you're like, oh, so one day I put on makeup. Now people think that I should look like that at all times. It's like, no, Photoshop and makeup do wonders. But I'm typically look like this, and I'm wearing scrubs, and I'm in the hospital treating children who are otherwise sick enough to be admitted to the hospital. So I'm a pediatric hospitalist. But in 2018, actually, the American Academy of Pediatrics came out with a very formal policy statement talking about harmful chemicals in plastic affecting our children's health, and to use glass or stainless steel instead. And I'm Indian. I came here when I was 3 years old. We eat off of steel all the time. And I thought, how can we have science that says one thing and then, not great solutions for children when they're swimming in baby bottles that are plastic and, disposable foodware. So I decided to launch a company called Ahimsa, which is a line of steel foodware. So I'm here to give you mini medical school 101 today. And so really helping the masses of decision makers, of parents, of caretakers, of legislators to understand the health impact plastics is having on human health, specifically our tiniest members of society, our children. So this is the formal recommendation of the American Academy of Pediatrics, like I said, this is the statement and policy of a group of 67,000 pediatricians, the largest of its kind in this country. And they really talked about these chemicals affecting our children's brain development, their normal growth, everything from cardiovascular health, immunity, to puberty and fertility. And this is echoed not just by pediatricians, but by the greater science community, from Endocrine Society to World Health Organization, to now even the United Nations. You might have heard about the Global Plastics Treaty, the second largest global treaty after the Paris Climate Agreement. So there is a global kind of magnifying glass now that the impact of plastic is not just the planet, it is also to human health. So how does that work? Well, Ali kind of told you I did endocrinology as part of my training. And, if you're an adult, we think about endocrine, we think about fertility, we think about adult kind of stuff, but actually everybody needs hormones. And hormones is just a system within our body of glands and hormones and organs. And it's this intricate communication pathway between basically our brain and all of our organs to grow and develop and, thrive normally. And so they're really essential for even child development, not just in adults. And so what happens is normally a hormone will be released. So your brain might release a hormone called thyroid stimulating hormone. It goes to your thyroid. Your thyroid produces thyroid hormone and tells your brain to grow, or it tells your weight to be at a certain level based on how you're metabolizing things. So it's just a pathway. So the hormone is the key. And the receptor is in your organ. So that's just normally what happens. A nice little lock and key that's supposed to work. But these chemicals in plastic look like those keys. So that's why we call them endocrine disrupting chemicals. You can raise your hand in the poll or with your little emojis here. How many have heard that term, endocrine disrupting chemicals or endocrine disruptors? A lot of people might have heard it in the consumer good, a lot of personal care products, but that's what that term actually means. It means that it's disrupting your hormones by synthetic man-made chemicals. So that's essentially what it does. That's kind of the big science lesson for the day. It goes in, it replaces that key, and then it wreaks havoc in the normal kind of communication pathway. So what does that mean though? Like, what does that actually mean? It means that we see huge health trends that we've never seen before. So when I was a medical student, not that long ago, I'm 43. So like, you know, I did medical school not too long ago, but when we were taught type 2 diabetes was a adult disease. Type 1 diabetes was a childhood disease. Morbid obesity was an adult disease. And since I've been practicing, I routinely have to see and treat children for type 2 diabetes who are 9 and morbid obesity at very young ages. And premature puberty, we're treating children as young as 6 for who are undergoing puberty. So what does that mean? It means that we see big health trends in a short period of time. And that means there's something environmentally happening because genetics doesn't change that quickly. And if you look at school lunch, we used to have school lunch that looked like that first picture, using reusable materials, using proper, you know, healthy nutrition that's fresh from scratch. And then something happened, the advent of fast food and plastics and everything in kind of that 50s, 60s era. And you will see that the commercialization of school lunch really started happening in the 1970s. And you can see very clearly what happened after that. So we have an epidemic proportion of obesity. Is it all related to plastic? No. Is it partly related to plastic? Yes. Is it related to our food system? 1,000,000,000% yes. And so we have to look at the food system as a whole, on the food that we're serving the children, from the chemicals in the processed food to the foodware that we're using, and collectively, all these kind of chemical exposures and lack of proper nutrition leads to health problems in children. So parents are hearing about this. This is all over the news, New York Times, it's in, you know, you'll hear it on Fox News, doesn't matter where you come from, it's on both sides. This is science. So it's being, you know, shared out with the masses, which is basically, hey, our children look different than they used to. And like plastic actually is bad for human health. And now it went from kind of a scientific community knowledge to the masses starting to understand this, which can be scary. And that's what I'm here to tell you all. It doesn't have to be scary. There are choices that we can make that can decrease the exposure of these harmful chemicals like bisphenols and phthalates. Everyone, how many people think BPA-free plastic is safe plastic? It's okay to raise your hand or not know, because that's the common philosophy. Is a lot of people think, oh, it's BPA-free plastic, so it's okay. But the problem is BPA is just one of the chemicals found in the greater family of plastics called bisphenols. And so unfortunately, the substitutes that they've created, BPS, BPD, whatever else, are equally as bad, if not worse, than BPA. So it's just, I want to help everyone understand that there are classes of chemicals that are routinely used in our school systems that, you know, affect our children. And we see it, maybe not on an individual basis, but we definitely see it with a population study. I'm just watching my time here. And so this is a disgusting picture, but I promise you hope is coming. I'm not going to make this all doomsday. Like things are going to be good. And a lot of this is happening in Dakota County, which I'm so proud of. But, you know, in addition to the plastic chemicals, we also talk about microplastics. I assume that people have at least heard that term because it's also all over the media. And this is how much microplastic, these are kind of very, very small pieces of plastic. So every week we consume about a spoonful of plastic every month, a bowl, and every year, a plate of plastic. So it is a big deal because we are consuming it, we're getting exposed. Now, it's not just in our food system. We inhale it, we absorb it. So I don't want to pin this on just one thing. It's definitely, but what can we do is definitely, we can affect schools in terms of our food system in a way that is more targeted and focused at decreasing these exposures for children. So that's why the American Academy of Pediatrics really came out and said stainless steel and glass are better for human health. Just because they've studied it for a long period of time. It's an inert material. If you go around to your commercial kitchens, you're already using steel. And if you go to your hospitals, you're already using steel. And if you have an implant in your body, it's probably steel or titanium. So there are just kind of other case studies in which, steel is just overall better for human health. And so we launched I launched a company in 2020 called Ahimsa. It's a Sanskrit word, Ahimsa, meaning avoiding harm. It's the first oath I took as a doctor. And certainly when I became a mom, it's the first oath I took as a pediatrician. And so this is my new version of practicing medicine at scale in a preventative form. We have a consumer line for home, but I realized really the more effective way to make massive population swings back to healthy kids is through the school system. So launched about 18 months ago, a line for schools. And so I'll kind of go through this because I know this group probably knows this, but in terms of environmental impact, certainly stainless steel is infinitely recyclable. It has a lower carbon emission, especially if it's recycled, which ours is. We need to be thinking equally about the current health of our children, but also the health of the planet we will leave behind for them. And so these were some pictures from Earth Day that the children made in some of the schools. And so really the big picture here, I'll send this out, but it takes so much energy and water and waste generation and carbon emission to produce kind of these single-use plastics. And the cafeteria is the greatest source of carbon emissions and toxic exposure to children. So this is kind of a great way to laser focus in on enacting change in our school system. So on an environmental standpoint, it is better to use reusable steel. When we looked at some of these schools, including Dakota County, every school saved money in the first year. Every school decreased their carbon emissions significantly. Every school decreased their waste impact and their water impact. So these are real tangible changes that can happen instantaneously, which is really exciting and hopeful, and not doomsday. So hopefully you get that. One kind of cautionary thing that I just like to always speak about health is so this is school save money. So these are just some of the costs associated with school saving money, because that's an important financial decision for a school. One of the things I just want to say is we know that polystyrene, these molded fiberwares, paper boats, they're bad for the planet. They're bad for health because they also have these chemicals in it. People have probably heard about the term PFAS. You will find that a lot even in the paper boat. So just be mindful of the materials you're bringing into your schools or into your districts, into your cities, from a disposable perspective, but also from a health perspective. When we do reusable plastic, the American Academy of Pediatrics, they say, please don't use plastic. If you have to use plastic, please don't put it in the dishwasher because it leaches more chemicals into the food and drink. And please don't use it when it's etched and scratched, which is what most schools are doing in America. But globally, they're not. And globally, children are eating off of steel, and they don't have the same health outcomes as our children. So again, it's not just plastic, it's our food system, but here are like some certain ways that we can help. We'd love to share more about our company for anybody who wants to know. We really value quality and safety of utmost importance, considering I'm a pediatrician by training, and the word Ahimsa means avoiding harm. So we're the only green screen certified company in the country. We have these trays that a lot of the Dakota County schools are using, which is exciting. So we've got Brittney and Spencer and Meghan being first adopters, not just in Minnesota, but in the nation, who are carrying some of our products and have had great results. And we have a full assortment of products. So I always say, like, I'm not really here to sell products. I am here to educate the public and empower you all with the knowledge and hopefully some good options as far as decision making in schools. And I'd like to just close with, the way we feed our kids really matters, and the little things that we do every day can make a big difference for them. And at the end of the day, they don't have a voice. They can't vote. They don't have any money to purchase. They often, don't make the rules in their school. So we are making the decisions on behalf of millions of children. And when you go back and look at that sharp rise of all of these health outcomes, we, the adults in the room, can reverse that and shift it backwards by the decisions we make. So I'm really thankful for the opportunity to chat with you all, and happy to connect offline.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Manasa. That's so helpful. I'm really grateful you're able to be here, because I think, when I'm going to speak after Brittney and Spencer share their kind of progress with their schools. But I think when I first started out learning about what reusable products are safe, Meghan thankfully stumbled across your website. So we didn't have to start looking into purchasing from Alibaba or wherever else that a school probably wouldn't be able to continue purchasing from in the future. So so happy that your company's here in the Midwest in Indiana. And who has a question related to this presentation they'd like to ask? And feel free to put it in the chat or unmute yourself, whatever's easier for you.
I think Bill had a question, processed food too. Was this related to microplastics or endocrine disruptors? So if I'm seeing the question, is it these health trends, are they related just to the plastic or the processed food? So the American Academy of Pediatrics, in that 2018 formal policy statement, and that's a big deal, you guys. It's not just, oh, here's a little case study. This is saying, this is our formal policy statement of 67,000 pediatricians. They said food additives and child health. That's actually the name of the report. We're happy to share that link with you. And so it is collectively, but unfortunately, our current food system, whether it's in schools or outside of schools, is a plastic processed food system. So we can't, and I think Rachel from my team, and I know Allie hears me say this all the time, I would love for every school to have a Ahimsa stainless steel. But if we put a bunch of Doritos and sugary cereal on those trays, we're not really helping holistically. So that's why we have a program called the Conscious Cafeteria program, to not just change to reusable steel, but to also be more conscious in the cafeteria, from the food that we serve, and we promote scratch cooking, to the education that we do. We have an educational curriculum with the Smurfs that we implement alongside. So we're really educating and empowering the adults, educating and empowering future adults, which are our kids, on better choices about the food system and what they're putting in their own bodies in terms of healthier choices at mealtime. And silicone is still less well studied. It's a newer material, but it has overall, it hasn't been studied. I actually asked Dr. Trisande, who is the author of the American Academy of Pediatrics, why did you only recommend glass or steel? He said, those are the materials that have had the longest duration of study and the safest profile for both environment and human health. And so that was the very specific answer about silicone.
That's helpful. And then Paul had a question. Have you heard anything about Corelle at all? I think that we did a little bit of research. I know it's a tempered glass. So we were trying to find a material for a green meetings kit internally in our county building. And, certain materials can get heavier than others. So we were looking for that as kind of an interim.
Yeah, so to be clear, while our company is steel, the scientists, including American Academy of Pediatrics physicians, glass and stainless steel, those are the two recommended materials of choice in a school cafeteria, and especially with children. Glass is, they like to test gravity. Gravity always wins. They don't remember that it will always win. But so glass is a great option. I'm a big fan of Corelle, just as a side note, and my dishwasher is filled with PourAway plates and Ahimsa steel. So for what it's worth.
Great. Well, that's helpful to know because I've had Corel my whole life, and I'm almost now that I'm finding all of this out in the last several years, I was wondering about that too. So that's helpful. And then someone asked here, Ronadell asked, are we able to get a copy of the slides? So yes, thanks for mentioning that. So all of the presentations that you'll see today will be on our website as well as the recording following the workshop. And one thing I did forget to say at the beginning, if you're able to turn your camera on, that helps us feel more connected. But I understand too if you're not able to, but I forgot to say that. So if you're willing, feel free. But thanks so much. I think we're going to jump on, but Dr. Mantravadi will be with us for the end of the panel. So if there's more questions that come up as Brittney and Spencer are talking, you can save those for the end. So next we will have Brittney Hirschauer. She's going to pull up her screen here. Brittney Hirschauer began her journey in the industry working for a contracted food service company in 2012. She has been the Director of Food Nutrition Services for Hastings Public School District for the last 5 years, during which she has navigated the hurdles of COVID and has been a leader in waste reduction initiatives with a goal to save resources and money for her district. In her free time, Brittney enjoys reading, camping, and spending time with her family. So Brittney, are you able to share your screen? Is it letting you do so?
Yes, my screen should be up right now. Is it showing or no?
Not yet. Do you see that big green button? There you go. Yay!
Okay.
It's
Now
working
we're
now.
okay. Now we are good. All right. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for being here and letting me talk a little bit about what we're doing in Hastings. First thing is Hastings is 3 elementary schools, a middle school, and a high school. And we have approximately 1,400 students in our elementary schools, middle schools, and high schools, about 1,400 and 1,200. One of our goals a couple years ago was bulk milk. I think all of us remember when we were having issues getting stuff from our suppliers, cartons were an issue, things like that were issues. So we started doing a grant with Allie in Dakota County to purchase bulk milk dispensers for middle school and high school and to replace our disposable cups. And I wanted to do utensils in the elementary schools because I figured might be a little bit harder for those little kids to use the reusable cups. Unfortunately, Hastings Creamery closed, so we weren't able to do that, but I'm still hopeful that we'll be able to do it in the future. So that's still a goal that I do have. It's just, I haven't been able to find a vendor that will do bulk milk for me. So one of the things that we ended up doing is we went from the compostable or the plastic silverware, depending upon what we could get during that time frame. And we went to reusable forks and spoons, and I did that in all 5 of my schools. So first I started off using forks, and then I brought spoons in. I made sure to purchase extra because we all know that silverware, reusable silverware sometimes can get thrown away, or for some reason, something just happens where it just disappears, or you get, I call it fork art. And then wanted to make sure that I have enough so that I didn't have to constantly worry about replacing silverware. And then we got carts to fit 2 bus tubs. So that way we could make sure that we could put silverware separate. We could do the forks in one tub and then the spoons in the other tub. And then I brought in the stainless steel trays that you just had a presentation on. I have 4 different schools that initially we brought back the plastic reusable trays at the high school, but the other schools started green teams. And so we went ahead and we got these stainless steel trays through the grant that we were just talking about, Dakota County and the Clinton Initiative. And we partnered and we were able to get these wonderful stainless steel trays. So some of you are probably wondering, how much is it really saving me? You know, for Forks and spoons are really the ones that I was able to focus on because I haven't really had to buy any of these plastic trays, which tells you how old these are, because I've been in Hastings for 5 years and they were here for quite a while before I came on board. But elementary schools, for all 3 schools, I figure I'm saving probably $5,700 a year. Middle school and high school for forks and spoons using the reusable instead of the plastic is probably about $12,000 a year. So that's almost $20,000 a year that I'm saving just by switching from plastic silverware to reusable. Hopefully that, that will kind of entice some of you to think of doing that yourselves. So here are some of the challenges that we faced when we decided to make all these transitions. So I needed to get some new equipment. Got new racks, needed to look at some place to dry all these trays because they do dry a little bit different than what the plastic trays do. Takes a little bit longer. We had some issues with some spotting and things like that. So at the middle school, I implemented a tray dryer. And basically it's just a big machine that sits over the trays as they come out, and I partnered with Allie and Dakota County to buy this dryer just to see how it would work. So we've got the tray dryer that as the trays come out, they get dried, and it's just a big, huge dryer above them, and it blows the air down. We're still working on seeing how that's going to work. And then I also had to add more staff. Now, the staff that I added wasn't just because of switching to reusables. Participation increased and everything too. So I did need to do that. And we're also looking at doing some different things in the kitchen too. So that's one of the other reasons why we ended up adding more staff. But I added like 1 to 2 more staff at each one of my locations. Elementary schools each had 1, and the middle school and high school, I added 2 for each location. And I just did 3-hour shifts. They are dishwashers / assistants, just kind of helping out where needed too. So it's not that all the hours were because of adding the reusable stuff. But another big challenge was getting the students to buy in, teaching the students the reasons why we're doing it, getting a setups. It took the students a little bit of time to understand, especially elementary students. Why are we putting the silverware this way? Why are we doing everything step by step a different way now? Because they're used to their normal way of doing things, and they were a little bit anxious about that. But once we showed them, and I think we've got some slides on here that I can show you of how things are set up. But once we got the student buy-in and we talked to the high school mostly about the silverware art, I think the students are actually really excited about it. Again, like I said, we have grain teams, high school, middle school, have people that are very, very interested in doing things a little bit differently. And they're very concerned about what we're doing to the earth and how can we be sustainable and all that. So elementary schools are starting to come into that. So that's another reason why we decided to do this. And then the big thing too is the signage. So when things are set up, your staff needs to set it up. Allie came in, she set it up, used best practices that she's seen in other locations or other places that she's seen it. She set it up for us, and I had staff take pictures of it so that way they knew how to set it up too. And that was the big thing, is it has to be set up the same way so that way the kids get into that routine. Some of the other initiatives that I also was able to do is I replaced some of the disposable clamshells that I had at my Hastings ALC students with plastic clamshells. That's a harder plastic. So that way we're less garbage, less recycling. And then we also added another share table to McCullough Elementary, and it matches the other elementary schools and the middle school because those are the other schools that had them. We were able to get fruit slicers with attachments for all 5 schools. And then I was also I improved my flavor station at the middle school and the high schools. So that way the kids have some different options there. And then I continued to use bulk condiment dispensers to cut down on waste also. Recycling improvements, this is what I was talking about when I was talking about how you need to make sure everything is set up the same way. As long as things stay the same, the kids get pretty much into a routine. The custodians had a lot of trash cans scattered throughout the cafeteria. And keeping everything set up like this and labeled, the kids know exactly where stuff goes. It only truly took maybe a week for kids to get into a routine and to understand this is how everything was. So at the elementary, they were already part of a grant program that got these recycling containers set up. But we did have to add liquids and recycling collection at 2 schools. And I started that for the first time. Some of the future considerations that I'm looking at is, again, I want to do the bulk milk if possible. Hopefully I can find a vendor that I can work with, and then I can get this recyclable stainless steel drink cups also. Flat stainless steel trays for the high school. And then I also have a couple of new products that Allie and I were able to come up with and find. And one of them is this flat dishwasher rack and the flatware soak system. So they're very similar to like what you see on the bus tub there with forks and spoons. But you can take them and you can just go ahead and pull the silverware up without getting your hands wet or anything like that, which is kind of nice. And then you can sort through stuff too that way. And that's pretty much all I have, short and sweet. Are there any questions or anything like that? And should I stop sharing my slideshow, Allie?
Yeah, you can stop sharing if maybe give people a little bit of time just to write down your contact info, but that was so great. Thank you so much, Brittney.
Yep.
And yeah, we're open for a few questions for Brittney. If anyone has any. I think I saw a few in the chat here. One of the questions I saw was, do the cost saving estimates include staff time, washing time, or only materials costs?
The cost savings that I initially did are the costs that it took me for buying the plastic silverware. Like I said, with staff time, I ended up looking at what I was doing for participation numbers, and I included, I think I just did like a quarter of the time for the increase in participation, but I added people just because I had to, because of all the participation numbers. My participation numbers skyrocketed, so I knew I needed to add hours to what I was already doing, and I knew I needed to add staff. So it just made sense. Like I said, the people that I added, the 1 dishwasher at each elementary school and the 2 at the middle school and the high school, just a small portion of their time is spent doing dishes. They're doing other things too. So when they come in, their first hour and a half is helping get things set up or helping restock things, doing that kind of stuff. And then their second half of their shift, so probably about an hour to an hour and a half, depending upon the school, is spent doing dishes.
Yep. No, that's helpful to know. And what's also helpful to note, I think for your district, Brittney, is you had the plastic reusable trays in the 4 schools that you implemented the stainless steel before. So you weren't adding any staff time for washing trays, just utensils, which tends to just happen at the end of lunch pretty quickly. Utensils aren't usually a big staff time investment, correct?
Correct. Yep. I mean, you figure out roughly 400 to 500 students at each elementary school. Not all of them, of course, eat, but we have about 85% participation right now. So the majority of them do eat, and washing the utensils doesn't take a ton of time. So it wasn't like a huge add-on. It was more the cost savings. And I don't know, because we added it towards the end of the school year, unfortunately, but I'll know more this at the end of this next school year coming up, like dumpster waste and all that kind of stuff too. So that's going to be a cost savings that I'll have. So hopefully that'll be a huge number that I'll be able to say, oh yeah, I saved X amount of thousand, or whatever. So But that's another part of it. And then just the stuff that's not going into landfills anymore or being, recycled.
Right. Right. The dumpster costs and everything else that goes. And I mean, even studies that I've looked at with reusables, it's like time spent purchasing disposable materials, time spent, getting the delivery, unboxing, all of that is avoided as well. And that is staff time as well. So utilizing that staff time differently or paying staff instead of paying for disposables is kind of the path I think we're on as a county. So thank you so much, Brittney. We had one other quick question before we jump to Spencer, just related to breakfast. So where do you serve breakfast, or where is breakfast eaten is the question in your district? And if you experience any damage with the trays so far.
So breakfast, it depends on the school. Some of the schools that I have, they do more of a grab and go style breakfast, where they take the food and they'll go back to the classroom. And then I also have schools that eat in the cafeteria area. So it just depends on the school. We don't use these trays at the schools where it's a grab and go, just because for breakfast, they take it back to the classroom and then we have recycling stations set up. So that is not something that we're doing as of right now. The schools that do eat breakfast in the cafeteria, then we do use the trays and we use the reuse.
Oh, that's me up there. That should be you, Diane Wiltshire.
We use the recyclables when we're in the cafeteria. And what was the other question?
And is there any damage yet to the stainless steel trays at all?
No, not to the
Have you
trays.
experienced any? Okay.
No, we haven't had any damage to the trays. The trays are a really nice, thick stainless steel. They're, I don't know how to describe it. I mean, they're a sturdy stainless steel, so we haven't had any damage to them yet. But they're not any, I wouldn't say that they're any heavier really than what your regular plastic tray would be. So it's not like there's a huge weight difference there. They're maybe a smidge heavy, but not any heavier really than what your typical plastic tray is. And we don't have them at the high school. We have them middle school, and all the elementary schools have them. So as of right now, we have not had any issues with damage to the trays. The biggest issue we have is trying to get the drying figured out and the water spots figured out.
Right. Great. Well, thank you so much, Brittney. Thanks for sharing.
Yes, thank you.
And there'll be time if you have more questions at the end of the panel, but our last presenter as a part of this panel is Spencer Fischer. Spencer Fischer is a child nutrition leader who effectively manages resources to provide students with healthy and delicious meals served by caring staff. He's worked in child nutrition for over 16 years, with the last 6 years as the Director of Nutrition Services in District 196, Rosemount-Apple Valley-Eagan School District. Through his leadership at schools while serving on the Minnesota School Nutrition Executive Board and as a member of the Minnesota Farm to School Leadership Team, Spencer's collaborated with Carver County and Dakota County SHIP, University of Minnesota Extension Services, Minnesota Department of Agriculture, Minnesota Grown, and Institute for Agriculture and Trade Policy. Spencer's maintained these relationships, started new relationships, and plans to leverage these relationships on a continuous improvement of the Nutrition Services Department. Spencer will share. Spencer will share his past initiatives while leading recycling and waste reduction efforts at District 196 in his presentation. So take it away, Spencer. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Allie, for the great introduction. So, as Allie said, I work in District 196. And just a little bit about District 196, some interesting facts. We are the third largest school district in the state of Minnesota with 29,000 students, 4,000 staff that we take care of. The square miles that we cover in District 196 is 110 square miles. So, and within that boundary, we have 38 different facility buildings. Last year, we served 4.5 million meals at 19 elementary schools, 6 middle schools, 4 comprehensive high schools, 2 alternate high schools, and a school for a school for students with special needs. Some of the strategies that when I came to District 196 that I really wanted to make an impact was that reduction of products that weren't good for the environment. So one of the first things that I noticed in District 196 is that we were using a lot of styrofoam at the high schools and all the way through the down to the elementary schools. Another goal that I wanted was in working with Allie, getting a better understanding of what is greenwash silverware. So plastic silverware that says, hey, we've reduced plastic in this silverware, but it's still more plastic than what we would want. So, manufacturers making claims that they were compostable, but really what they did is they just removed enough plastic out of it to make a claim that they were more eco-friendly. And then this year, working with Allie and Ahimsa, we were able to transition some of our cups and our serving trays into that stainless steel tray, because I truly believe that, our children are our future, right? So they're going to be there taking care of us when we need it, and we need to try and make sure that we're leaving the earth in a better spot than when it was given to us. So a couple of items that I've implemented to try and encourage less waste is bulk service at schools. So previously, we were portioning everything in plastic cups, and I was like, well, this is a whole lot of time that we're spending putting fruit into a cup when students could serve themselves, right? And some people may say, well, the smaller children, they can't serve themselves, they always need help. Like, well, give them the opportunity to learn. Let them build that dexterity. Buy like appropriate size scoops and tongs for those littlest learners so that they can grab the carrots and stuff like that. So I've had lots of success with our elementary students using scoops and using tongs and moving into a bulk service of our fruits and veggies. And as the kids grow into middle school and high school, they become used to it. And it also allows students to make their own choice. How much do they want? So all of those multiple things ends up to be a cost savings in effect. Just like Brittney, we've included share tables, flavor stations. We've also expanded our farm to school program to buy more local produce that is produced, within 25 miles of District 196. So, and all of these things is to reduce that waste. I recall, growing up, Saturday morning cartoons, who would come on during the commercial breaks was Woodsy the Owl, right? Give a hoot, don't pollute. So that really was a big thing for me. And then when I came to District 196, I was invited to a middle school. And the middle school students gave me a presentation about the environmental impact of the waste and trash that was going into our landfills. And they asked, what is District 196 doing about this? And already at that time, I had a plan of expanding more reusables, removing that styrofoam. And one of the things that they had mentioned in 2019, and I think that this was starting on that cusp of really understanding how far microplastics have incorporated themselves into human beings or into our environment, because they were talking about microplastics in the water, microplastics being in animals, being in humans. So that was really a big eye-opener for us. And knowing that I wanted to make an impact to try and reduce some of those plastics and get that greenwash silverware out of District 196, in 2020, I started a project called Quicksilver at our elementary schools. So it's the forks, spoons, all the wares to effectively make the changeover happen. Again, the silverware, it does take a little bit of time to sort, wash, but if you can train your students to separate the spoons and forks into separate buckets, just like Brittney had on her presentation, it reduces the time. And then just washing that silverware is like one more step, but it's truly worth it. So back in 2020, our initial investment with the tubs, the carts, the cylinders, the forks, the spoons was about $44,000 investment. And we had to put it on hold because of that pandemic. You know, the entire country went to disposables. We did not want to touch anything that somebody else had touched because of the COVID fear and just the precautions, right? We were overabundantly a caution against the COVID virus. So we put Project Quicksilver on hold for all of our elementary schools till we came out of it. Back in 2022, we did a re-rollout of our silverware. And if we would have been using sporks, like those greenwash sporks this past year, that would have been over $100,000 that we would have spent in disposable silverware. And where you can see the total investment was about $44,000. Now, prices have gone up, so if you're looking at getting into investing in stainless steel, like my Quicksilver project, it'll probably be a little more expensive. But if you compare it, I think you'll see that you'll be saving money, especially in that investment year. We did Project Quicksilver at our elementary schools. And I wanted to make sure that we weren't using that greenwash silverware at our secondary schools. So I did some research, found 100% compostable silverware made by Georgia Pacific. It is a little bit more expensive at 8 cents, more expensive than that greenwash silverware, but that cost is offset by using the reusable in the elementary schools. And one thing that partnering with manufacturers, they supplied the silverware dispensers that's shown on the screen there. You just call up Georgia Pacific and say, hey, I'm looking at doing this smart stock silverware. What types of dispensers do you have for us? So very easy company to work with as well. And then another program that we did was bulk milk, because I truly love bulk milk. It's just a whole better milk experience that you have. Think about going to the county fair or the state fair and going to the milk booth or the dairy barn and getting that ice cold cup of milk. That was my motivation behind going to bulk milk. Working with Allie in Dakota County and the green team at the School of Environmental Study, we did a waste study about like the little cartons of milk. How many cartons of milk did we throw away this year, or what have we thrown away? And then how much wastewater did we save by switching over to bulk milk? 40,000 gallons. That's, probably about half an Olympic-sized pool. I'm just guessing on that one, but it's a lot. And when we reduce those milk cartons, it's a benefit. And for the work that it takes for the farmers to milk the cows and the whole system to get milk to the location, a decrease of milk by 41% is an overall benefit. So I really appreciate that. When we rolled this out, we just used melamine cups to start with because we're sort of fast tracking this to make it viable for that school year. And then again, pandemic set in. And so we suspended that, went back to the cartons, but now we're back and running at school environmental study with the bulk milk. And this past year, we introduced it at our elementary schools. And as we were preparing for the elementary schools, Allie and I had a discussion about, oh, what's the safest container to put milk in? And we went back and forth, and it's like, oh, stainless steel, because it's non-reactive. So that's where Allie and I were searching like different companies that produced stainless steel, and ones that that we could purchase through the Buy American Act. And so Ahimsa was that company. I got some samples from them. They worked out great. And the great thing about stainless steel cups, it holds that coldness of that milk. So if we're talking about that milk experience, it's an ice cold milk that just goes down great. The other thing that I really liked about the stainless steel cups is they had a smaller grasp for those little learners, so that they could handle their cup a little bit easier. And sort of some exciting things that, as we're looking into the future with bulk milk, there is a company called Milk on Tap, which is a glycol system. So if you think about, pop lines, things like that, students will be able to just push a button. It'll dispense 8 ounces of milk into their cup within seconds, and it's ice cold. There's no more lifting the big bags of milk into the steel cow, but these will actually be in the refrigerator, set up, and you just you tap into the milk. So it's I'm really excited about that, and we're looking at launching that in our upcoming middle school build. So we're very excited looking into that. And then our 2023 elementary stainless steel project. So we did an Earth Day rollout in this past spring. So we did bring all of our elementary schools with stainless steel trays. We had a very similar situation as Brittney, that there was a little bit of a lag on the dry time that we didn't experience when we first started our pilot program. But then as we rolled it out to all 19 schools, I discovered that, yeah, there was a dry time, but we were able to titrate our rinse aid to decrease that time and make it very similar to what the melamine trays were at. So we actually just got all the titrations done yesterday. So I'm very excited for the students to come back and for the staff to come back and not have to deal with trays drying everywhere. One of the big things for me was leaching of the chemicals and the wear and tear on the melamine trays, because there were some trays that were really old, they were stained. Melamine is reactive, so if you put ketchup or that red sauce on the tray, it sort of stains it. Or with a stainless steel tray, it's non-reactive. So these trays, they get washed, they look great. I was at an elementary school, kids were looking at themselves because the stainless steel is almost like a mirror, so they were checking their hair in their lunch tray. So it was really fun to have this launch and to have so much excitement around it. The overall investment that we had for our 19 elementary schools was a little over $57,000. But if we compare that to what it would have been if we would have had compostable trays, we would have spent over $140,000. So overall, the investment is there. Now people are going to say, well, the melamine tray is less expensive. Well, true, but you will have to replace those melamine trays sooner, and the melamine will degrade over time, right? Where the stainless steel, we're looking at having these for over 10 years. So overall, I believe it's the right thing to have the stainless steel trays, not only based on the science that Ahimsa shared with us early in this presentation, but where we're going. Couple of other things that we have planned for the future here with stainless steel trays is our early childhood. We're going to be using a stainless steel plate, bowl, and a smaller cup for those littlest of little learners. And then we're looking at also bringing stainless steel trays into our secondary schools. We're looking for a flat tray. So similar to like a quarter-inch sheet pan that students can put their food on it. You know, if you've ever been to Dickey's Barbecue, they always have the sheet pans that you could also double as a cookie sheet, right? So they're like the jelly roll pans or whatever. But we're still in the search for that, and that will be a future endeavor for us here in District 196. And I know I've went pretty quickly through my presentation here, but that sort of concludes it for me. So if anybody has any questions, here's my contact information, and then I'll just leave that up for a while questions come through.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Spencer. For as many times as, I've talked with you and Brittney, every time I hear from both of you, I'm just like re-energized. I'm like, oh my gosh, I still have so many questions. So instead of me asking my questions first, I guess we'll look at the chat. I think Jill had asked, for you, Spencer, I think you mentioned adding rinse aid to your drying process. Are there any concerns about the chemicals in these products? Or do we know anything about those products?
Yeah. I know enough that, the rinse aid products, it's just like the jet dry that we use at home. And we wouldn't be using a product that would cause harm in a school setting. So the company that we work with, it is just a rinse aid.
Right. And then another question for both Brittney and Spencer. Stephanie at their school has a stainless steel waste station, and their students tend to bang their current trays when disposing of food in the compost bin or organics at the end of the line. Do you notice a lot more noise or denting at all of the stainless steel trays so far?
So I'll start with this one. I haven't noticed any denting or anything like that. And we did a drop study on the trays. So we took a melamine tray, dropped it from waist level, and we did the same thing with the stainless steel tray. The decibels are pretty much the same. It's just a different sound that it makes. So for the noise, it's a different sound, but it's probably about the same level of sound. And yes, we do have kids that will use the flatware, the stainless steel flatware, and make music on the tray. So I think it's just one of those coaching opportunities that we have to allow kids to be kids, but also be respectful of the noise level.
Yeah, I would agree with what Spencer had said. I haven't noticed any denting or anything like that. And I mean, truthfully, the trays are pretty sturdy. If you get the chance, I would recommend reaching out to Allie or reach out to me or Spencer and see if you can, I'm more than happy to meet somebody or have someone come here and you can see the trays that we're utilizing. So that way you kind of get an idea, but they are pretty sturdy, I think. And we haven't had any problems with denting. Noise wise, it's not any louder than it was before.
Yeah. And I would invite people also to my schools as well. We do have some elementary schools that are open for summer feeding that families can come into and see the stainless steel trays in action.
Awesome. And another question, this one's from Jane. Does the bottom of the tray, have you experienced, get hot when hot foods are put on it?
So there is a learning curve with hot food. So the stainless steel does transfer heat a little more readily than the melamine, but the way that the stainless steel trays are designed, if students hold them on the edge, there's no transfer of the heat to the edges.
Perfect. And then for both you and Brittney, are the trays collected at the end of the line stacked, or I believe they're returned to dish windows and they're sometimes stacked there, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then another for Spencer, when do you expect bulk milk to be implemented, or maybe for both you and Brittney, because you're both talking about bulk milk. When do you expect bulk milk to be implemented in the district? I know Spencer already has a few schools already.
Yep. So we're doing a slow rollout of our bulk milk because I want to make sure that students have the ample amount of time to get used to carrying a cup throughout the school. As I said, we have multiple schools that I'd love to roll it out in, but I think going a little bit slower on bulk milk will be more beneficial for District 196.
And then for us in Hastings, I have not been able to, ever since Hastings Dairy closed, I was not able to find anyone that's either doing bulk milk or that I could add on to their workload. There was one or two that said that they do have bulk milk, but they weren't able to add me to it because they were already at mass capacity. So I'm hopeful that maybe that'll be something that I can do down the line.
Perfect. And then we did have, I'm backing up in the chat here. It looks like we did have a question related to just the issue of throwing away stainless steel utensils. Have either of you experienced, obviously we're always going to have some loss, but a substantial amount of loss, and any ways you mitigate that?
Yes. Go ahead, Brittney.
Oh, okay. For us, basically, we haven't had a ton of loss for silverware yet. It doesn't mean that it's not coming down the line, but I think a lot of it is just consistent training with the students. And like I said, it's getting them into the habit of this is how we're going to do things. And I think once you get to that point and you've got them trained on what you want, and you've got the staff that's there trained on it, both, you know, whoever's in the cafeteria working with the kids, I don't foresee a whole lot of loss, because the very first thing that we do is have them put their silverware in the containers. And it's very important to have that set up so that silverware is first, then you're, you know, dumping your milk, and then you're, you know, step by step, kind of like what I had in the pictures. And work with Allie on that, because Allie helped set it up for us.
Yeah, and I'm going to echo Brittney's sentiment there that, you know, the overall loss, it may seem like a lot, but for how many meals that we're serving, it's truly minimal. A couple strategies that we work through, because it's always painful seeing silverware in the dishwasher, is putting those bus tubs first. So when students are emptying their trays, the silverware goes first. Another strategy that some schools have used is they actually put silverware recycling bins, like green buckets, on the tables. So as the students are finishing up their meal, they just put their fork or their spoon in the green bucket on the table, and then those get returned to the dish area or the drop window.
And Brittney, I think one of your elementaries actually is trying that out, that method, correct?
Yes, yeah, we have one elementary that's trying it just to see how that works. So
With the buckets on the table.
And I think I think there was another one in the chat on how did you roll it out. I think that's part of like why Spencer and Brittney's programs have been so successful. It's really this initiative. It's not just swapping out foodware. It's really incorporating kind of this educational opportunity for the whole school, including the students. And so they understand the why behind what they're doing. And as a pediatrician, I can tell you, kids are way smarter than we all are. And so as long as you are educating them and getting, you know, we've got posters that we send to schools with the Smurfs on it and stuff. And so when you can educate them and empower them, they're like way better humans than we are. So, and they can learn pretty quickly.
Right. Right. And Jill, great point. Yes. So we do have some schools as a part of this kind of grant project. I know Lincoln Center Elementary in South St. Paul, they did not implement the stainless steel trays yet. but they are in your district, and they implemented reusable utensils, forks and spoons, and they did do that practice kind of trial run of, we're going to put plastic utensils in this bus tub for 2 weeks before we launch the real thing. So that is another method you can use just to get students in the practice of it. And they will look at you weird the first day of like, why are we putting these in here? Are you going to wash these plastic utensils and give them to me tomorrow? But just to remind them, hey, we're doing an announcement. This is our new, sorting station, and this is why we're doing this, so that when we get the real thing, you don't throw away your metal fork and spoon at home if you have that at home. So why would you do it at school? So that method, as well as I've heard things about magnets on containers. I've never found or heard of one that actually works super well, but that is being tested. I did hear Berkeley Unified School District out in California talking about that on a webinar about they may be piloting those magnetic kind of flatware retrievers for the top of their waste receptacles. But yeah, just all kinds of different methods. And yeah, I think this is just really helpful to hear. And one of the other kind of takeaways I remembered when Brittney was talking about the fork art, we did get, so medium weight utensils is what was purchased as a part of the grant with Hastings. And then I think, Spencer, you also have medium weight utensils, correct? Okay, so medium weight, you can get heavyweight. Those would be even more unbendable, but don't get lightweight. So make sure they're not easy to create. But one of the takeaways I think Spencer mentioned to me was, if a student at your district is found making fork art, is it true they have to go and kind of share that with the food service manager at that school?
That's true. They so if they're making fork art at the table and a lunchroom monitor sees them, they'll say, hey, why don't you come with me, bring your fork, and let's talk to the kitchen manager about your design here. And so it really starts to eliminate the amount of fork art, because they have to go up to an adult which they trust, which gives them meals every day, and explain why they made some art with reusable utensil. So it quickly stops the behavior.
Right. And so much interest. One last question. This was individually to me. It looks like, did you ever think about or have a need for, I know we talked about this, Brittney, because several of your current or past reusable plastic trays, I know you had different varieties, had a spot for a utensil. Has that been an issue with the stainless steel tray not having a specific spot per utensil? Or is it, they're just using a compartment for the utensil and it works out just fine?
I was worried about that also when we first initially started this, because especially with the little kids are always so used to putting, their silverware has to go here and their food can't touch, and you have to have everything in its spot, and you can't put stuff in the wrong spot because then they move it on you. So I was kind of worried about that. And truthfully, it has not been too much of an issue. I mean, there's been a couple of kids that have, had issue with it because, well, where am I supposed to put it? It's like, well, let's put it right here. And once they figure out that it's okay to put it someplace else, then it's not an issue anymore. So, but yeah, no, we haven't had too many problems with it. It's, like I said, mostly elementary students, the little kids, like the kindergartners and first graders, that are so used to being, able to put things in a specific spot that they want it in. But I think now we're okay with it.
Perfect. Same
And
for you,
just
Spencer, I'm guessing. Oh, go ahead.
quick one. The reason why we didn't put those, just so everybody, because we get to ask that all the time, is because the drying, like the racks that go into the dishwasher, we wanted, like when I was designing, I wanted it to be as energy efficient as possible. So to fit as many trays as possible. So you actually get less trays with the extra spots. So just as a, like a quick answer to that, that's one of the reasons we didn't put it in, is to decrease the number of wash cycles you all need to do. So efficiency.
Yeah, and I think that the silverware tray was more alarming to adults than to students, because again, students have that resiliency to figure it out. And I think within a week of the stainless steel trays, all the elementary students had figured it out. Okay, I'm going to put my fork or spoon here and I'm good.
Right. And you may have mentioned this, Spencer, but I am very excited too. I mean, just on the cusp, both of you are just on the cusp of so many new initiatives all the time with the early childhood kind of stainless steel plate and cup and square bowl, like even expanding our thinking. I think sometimes with reusables, it's trays, utensils, okay, we're good. It's like, what other disposables or compostables are we using that maybe we could also replace, like bowls or portion cups, etc. So just one more exciting venture for the future to chat about at a future workshop. Awesome. Okay. Well, you have Spencer and Brittney's contact and their presentations will be on the website. So yeah, for more questions, we'll kind of end it there so we can keep moving here. But Kim, when we did do the cafeteria changes, the best way to inform students, I brought a microphone, at least for the grants, not for Spencer's schools, but for the grantee in Hastings schools, and actually did announcements. So I was in the cafeteria the first day, kind of helping sort and getting students in the right path. And then it's really, I mean, students, yeah, it's not rocket science. So they kind of figure out their mode and then go from there. So great. Okay, well, I'm going to share my screen here. Thank you so much, Spencer and Brittney. And let's see, this should be working here. Awesome. Okay, so while Spencer and Brittney were talking, I actually pulled this onto my slide because it just seemed like we needed to read it for a second. So everybody just take 10 seconds and read this. Let that sink in a little bit, right? So it's like all of that energy goes into making plastic products only to, we're getting it oil from the ground, we're shipping it, we're making the product, we're trucking it, we're packaging it, we're unboxing it, only to throw it away and use it one time. So I think that's kind of what, Spencer and Brittney are getting at when it's like, what are the costs, the true costs? And our waste hierarchy, I want to give credit where credit's due on this project, and it's really owed to Brittney and Spencer as food service directors and leaders for making these incredible changes and investing in reuse. This project also included Jeff Wolfer and Meghan Bernard at School District 197, as well as Dory Pavel at South St. Paul Public Schools for their pioneering efforts as well. So a quick reminder that though recycling is required, the best options for waste are reduction and reuse. That's why they're the first two R's at the top of the waste hierarchy for a reason. So just really trying to consider that as much as possible. And then for some more context and background, Dakota County provides funding and assistance to schools to reduce waste through our school waste prevention and recycling grant program. We were awarded a $55,000 grant from the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency or the state to enhance reuse efforts in schools in 2022. So funds from both grants were used to implement reusable forks and spoons at 8 new schools, including Brittney's. Spencer had already had those prior to this project at his elementaries. Stainless steel reusable trays at 6 new schools, piloting 2 tray dryers in 2 different districts, and providing a dishwasher stipend for District 197. So Independent School District 196, Spencer's district, our largest school district in our county, purchased these stainless steel reusable trays for all 19 elementary schools with their own funds. So special shout out there. And in total, we have now 3 school districts in Dakota County with these stainless steel trays and products in 25 total schools with these stainless steel trays in the cafeteria. So these are replacing either reusable plastic trays or single-use disposable products and keeping those out of the landfill. So just wanted to give some context to where this kind of all started. When I was initially doing research for this grant, it was like, hey, our grant's to buy bulk milk, dispensers, reusable trays, and utensils. That's simple, right? We'll just buy what I've been buying. And then stumbled upon this ditching disposables toolkit from Center for Environmental Health and saw, oh, stainless steel is the safest material. And they say to avoid melamine and polycarbonate. Well, that's what all the trays are made from. What do we do? So that's kind of how this all began. So the links are in here for that if you're curious, and maybe put in the chat I don't have a specific poll for it, but maybe put in the chat some things that you learned from this panel, because this is really exciting stuff. And I think Dakota County, this is huge that in the last year we've gone from 0 schools with stainless steel trays to 25. So it's really, really awesome. Thanks so much for presenting, all 3 of you, on your efforts. So the next topics we're going to discuss is shredded paper. We know there are confidential documents at school that need to be shredded, and Dakota County and haulers have provided different guidance on what to do with confidential material and shredded paper over the years. So I'm excited to share a bit of updated information with everyone today on this topic. So first, I just wanted to review a few quick recycling basics. These are the items we need in the recycling stream. They're the highest value, provide the greatest benefit to conserve our resources and protect our air, water, and land. So, you know, paper, cardboard boxes, cartons, metal cans, glass bottles and jars, and then plastic bottles, jugs, and containers with the numbers 1, 2, or 5 in the triangle on the bottom, which when I'm working with students, I like to use sign language, you know, the I love you symbol for finger number 1, 2, and 5, because we love recycling. So emptying out the containers as best as we can. You know, dirty containers need to go in the trash, but keeping our lids and caps on. These are all basics I think we all know. And we have this designated list of recyclables that all residents, businesses, schools, government institutions, everyone in Dakota County has to recycle, and waste haulers have to collect for recycling. So this list was adopted to standardize these basic items to reduce confusion on what to recycle, which helps improve the quality of all our materials that are recycled. And you know, these fall into 6 main categories, which we just reviewed. You know, all of our paper, cardboard, cartons, metal, cans, glass bottles, and plastics. So recyclables, this is a newer thing. We've talked about this in workshops in the past, but recyclables have to be loose in our recycling dumpster or cart now. So since 2021, plastic bags can no longer be put in the hauler supplied recycling bins, either carts or dumpsters, which includes plastic bags used to collect recyclables. So if plastic bags are used to collect recyclables from inside the school building or on school grounds, you'd need to empty out the recycling out of the bag directly into the recycling dumpster cart, and then put the bag after it's soiled in the trash. So recycling facilities don't want our bagged recyclables because these bags are dangerous for sorters to open, and they wrap, as you can see in this photo, around the equipment and get tangled around machines at the recycling sorting facility. So this picture is showing a machine that has many bars that constantly rotate to separate containers and paper. So bottles and cans drop below the bars, and then the paper and cardboard surfs on top of the bars. But if plastic bags, cords, other tanglers get wrapped around, that's going to prevent the containers from dropping below and mess up the system and not get things where they need to be. So every day at every recycling facility in our area and around the country, the whole sorting facility has to shut down so workers can physically cut out the bags with their power tools and heavy cutters. So shutting down this equipment is time loss for sorting, and it can be really dangerous to workers as well. So we know these things. So now we want to do our poll that we might have already seen, but we're going to see it again. Kirsten's willing to pull it up for us. And you should see that on your screen shortly.
All right, everybody, just go to the 3rd poll this time.
Yeah, scroll on down. So we're looking at the poll. Can shredded paper go in the recycling? Yes, no, I'm not sure. Help me. Let's see what we think for shredded paper. And this is paper that's already shredded.
All right, looks like we have 98% have answered.
Awesome.
All right.
All right, so for our poll results, what do we got here? Looks like 60% say no, and around 30% say yes, it can go in the recycling. So let's find out, shall we? Okay, so shredded paper is actually one of those items on our designated list of contaminants for recycling. And is this in our way for anybody else? Is this blocking the slide?
I can't see anything.
Okay, the video is not in the way of the slide for you.
Nope.
Okay, great news. So putting the wrong things in the recycling can or container can cause problems at the recycling facility. So all of the items on this list we want to keep out of the recycling, including shredded paper. But let's learn more about why shredded paper can't go in the recycling and why it's on our designated no list. So shredded paper is a high quality paper. It's a valuable recyclable material, but it can't go in the recycling container. So what the heck? What do we do with it if it's recyclable to get it recycled? So I know this might be new information to you, as we used to be able to place shredded paper in a stapled brown paper bag labeled shredded paper at home, maybe like that picture shows, or minimal large clear plastic bags in schools. This does not work for recycling sorting facilities, as we've discussed. When the bags, get wrapped around the machinery, and when bags of shredded paper are opened on the sorting floor, because that's what's going to happen. What's in here? Shreds become confetti, and it's a party that no one wants to attend. So it creates a hazard for the workers. It's falling through the cracks in the machinery, and it's not getting recycled. So those paper shreds also end up in other material streams like glass, lowering the quality of those products. And we know plastic bags aren't even allowed at the sorting facilities anymore. So how would we get it there? So there was also a time we recommended composting shredded paper. So I wanted to clarify that as well. So as we discussed at length in last year's workshop, we're focused for organics now on collecting food scraps in the organics containers. And the only paper products we accept in organics need to be BPI certified. So the shredded paper is not BPI certified. We can't guarantee it doesn't have microplastics or toxic inks within it that would then end up in the finished compost, which we definitely don't want in our landscaping and gardening projects. So that's why they're no for recycling and organics. And we know shredding paper at school costs money. So if your school or district is shredding on site in large shredders or desk side shredders, all that paper is ending up in the trash. As we now know, we can't put it in recycling or organics. And that has a cost for your school in multiple ways. It could be staff time and all of the above. Staff time, bag costs, trash hauling fees. We know there's a state solid waste management tax of 17% that's on trash hauling that doesn't apply to recycling and organics hauling. Some school districts have a large school-owned shredder, maybe at one location, that shreds for the entire district. So that's even maybe more staff time than just collecting the bags throughout the school, because now it's requiring school staff to box up confidential materials, drive them over to the location for shredding, which is staff time as well as gas. So, and that all, is high quality recyclable paper that could be made into new products that's now ending up in the landfill. So we know there's lots of options for residents, like when we're at home, to get rid of our materials, because all cities in Dakota County must host a free drop-off event for residents to get rid of confidential papers, a shred event. There's also businesses, retail businesses, Office Depot, Staples, the U.S. Postal Service for shredding services for a small fee. But if you're really into shredding at home, there's this one place you can bring your shredded paper in a paper bag, is the recycling zone in Egan, because they're going directly to the paper mill and bypassing the sorting facility. But these are all solutions that we mostly talk about for residents at home. So what is our solution for schools? So the solutions that I have established, just from talking with districts and learning from schools so far, is eliminating these shredders, including large shredders that may be used to bring paper from around the district to one location, as well as the small desk side shredders certain staff may use. So remembering, if paper is shredded at school, it can't go in the recycling organics, which means it's going into the trash. Public schools are eligible for state contract pricing from any of the 4 vendors listed on the state contract, which is linked here on this slide. So there is a state contract for confidential paper shredding services. Private schools could also use this as a starting point for maybe vendor contacts, as well as negotiating services or pricing. But depending on your services on the state contract, The destruction of documents can happen either on-site, off-site, or both. So I think you can establish that with them what your preference is. And there's separate pricing listed here for both on and off-site shredding for each vendor listed. So one thing you might be wondering, what is the difference between shredding at school and paying someone else to shred your confidential documents? Confidential paper collected from an outside vendor is securely shredded and brought directly to the paper mill for recycling. So they skip the recycling sorting facility. And the issue is not that the shredded paper, I've been saying this whole time, it's a high quality material. The issue isn't that it's not recyclable. It's just it's unable to be sorted out at the sorting facility. So when you work with a shredding vendor, they bypass that step to the sorting facility that the rest of your recyclables take when you put them in your recycling cart or dumpster. And they go directly to the paper mill after shredding your materials with that paper to be recycled. So all vendors that are listed on our state contract in Minnesota are required to recycle the confidential paper once it's shredded. So that's exciting. And then lastly, ShredRite, a local shredding company, has offered several fundraising opportunities for years. They actually presented at our workshop back in like 2017. So this is an organization that, if your school's looking to raise money, might be something to look into while also educating on shredded paper to your school community. So through their mobile shred event program, they offer schools selecting a date and time for them to bring their mobile shred truck to your location of choice. You can invite as many people as you like to your shredding event. So this would be more for like putting it out to parents or students or staff, the school community, to raise money for whatever initiative this is. And they bring all their shredding that day. And each person would pay a donation fee at their discretion for securely shredding the documents on site. And the group or school gets to keep all the donations collected from the event. So they have a whole fundraising toolkit on their website that you can check out on this link if you're interested following the workshop. And Dakota County really supports recycling of confidential paper and getting it to its highest and best use. So we would love to work with your school or district to come up with solutions. This is an example of the confidential paper cart we have in our county office buildings. So we have this system in place. You're going to hear from Dan in a second. He has that system in place at his district. So we really want to reduce the need to cut down more trees and get this paper that's shredded safely and securely to be recycled and not be spending money to throw it away and time for you too. So next, we're going to hear from Dan on his district's confidential shredding process. So I'm going to introduce Dan Miller. He currently serves as the Director of Operations for Farmington area public schools. In his role, he oversees all buildings and grounds staff and operations, district health and safety, construction management, and other miscellaneous duties under the direction of the superintendent. Dan has been in his current role since July of 2017. And prior to that role, he started his career in education as a middle school life science teacher in Lakeville, what was then Kenwood Trail Junior High. And then after obtaining his master's degree, he transitioned to the role of technology coordinator at Century Junior High in Lakeville. And then he left teaching in 2005, where he then transferred to Farmington area public schools as a middle school assistant principal. And after working with the administrative team through the construction of the new Farmington High School and subsequent grade level reconfiguration in the district, Dan was principal of Bachman Middle School in 2012 and has continued in the role of building principal until accepting his current job in 2017. So he has all kinds of experience in schools, teacher, principal, and now director of operations. So thanks for being here, Dan.
Yep. Hey, Alec, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
People hear me? Okay, just want to make sure. Sounds good. Well, thanks. I know we're probably running a little bit short on time here. So if you want to go jump to the next one. Yeah, Allie and I have chatted about this a bit and just kind of struck up a conversation about recycling and confidential shredding materials. And so as part of that conversation, I just basically had relayed that we've used a confidential shred outside vendor for quite some time in the district. So we currently use Shred-it. I know that they are not one of the state contract vendors. you know, once again, every district probably a little bit different in terms of, you know, how they secure vendors and contracts and so on and so forth. In doing some cost comparison too, it would be my opinion anyway that currently the agreements that we have with Shred-it definitely are competitive, if not better than most of the state contract pricing. And there are lots of different things that go into that pricing as well. So may not always be an apples to apples comparison. This practice for us has been in practice since I can remember. And so I've been in the district for going on 20 years. And to the best of my recollection, I believe that this has been in place for about at least that period of time. In terms of structurally, kind of how we have this set up is each of our buildings has at least a minimum of one bin. Most of those bins are the larger 96 gallons, and there's a couple photos there on that slide, kind of just giving an indication. Allie had put one up there as well. Pretty standard, you know, large type of a bin on wheels, got caster wheels on the bottom, slot on the top, and then some sort of a locking mechanism. This isn't on the slide, but I would share that each of our office locations where these bins reside, obviously Shred-it has keys to access these, and we do have a key that they provide us just in case we get an oops, that shouldn't have gone in the bin type of a situation where we have an office staff individual that could retrieve a document if needed that was accidentally placed in that bin. We do have a few 64s as well, but they are pretty sparse. And then I would say, based upon the configuration of your buildings or the types of programs that buildings serve, here in our district, we do have a number of buildings that have multiple bins. I just listed a few examples here, and that's based primarily on that programming or office structure. So our high school, for example, we've got a main office in our high school, but our high school also, the space itself also warehouses the majority of our district office personnel, as well as historically, at least for the last probably 8 to 10 years, kind of our special services office. So basically what I'm saying there is we had 3 confidential shred bins because of the nature of those office spaces. So there's one in the main office at the high school, one in the district office space, and then our special services location office also had their own shred bin as well. Part of that just proximity, as well as the amount of confidential material, shred material that's generated over time, just making sure that it's reasonable in terms of pickup and shred timelines. One of our elementary schools, our Meadowview Elementary School, sort of the same situation there. That particular building, main office has one, and then that particular site is also where our community education district level folks and services reside at that campus. So similar sort of a scenario. They have a confidential shred bin in their kind of district office space there. And then we have a kind of a bit of an atypical site. We call it our Tiger Legacy and Learning Center, where our district food service operates out of. And then we have a very large contingent of special services in that building as well. So same sort of a scenario where we've got multiple bins. But in most cases, we've got a single bin at most of our traditional sites, and that seems to be more than adequate. In terms of costs, and Allie mentioned this as well, we have they come and they pick up on site, and then they swap out the bins. In most cases, we're not doing a shred on site sort of a scenario. The vendor comes in, they know where the bins are, they retrieve the bins, pick them up, swap them out, and then you know, basically are returning, you know, empties and as they cycle those out. Our costs typically, to the best of my ability and kind of going through financial records, usually ranges from about $40 to $55 per bin each month for that. Some of those charges, you know, having to do with locations of sites and so on and so forth, but seem to be very competitive with state contracts. It's been a system that's been in place, to be quite honest. We very seldom ever think about it anymore. They show up, pick the stuff up. It's very little hassle for staff in terms of any staff time required to do much of anything with that. So pretty easy process that's been in place for us for quite some time. I would also just mention, in fact, we just talked about this again yesterday here in the district, is kind of, I just termed it as kind of special requests. We certainly have worked with Shred-it, who's our current vendor, to assist us with very large scale kind of confidential or file purges. That Tiger Legacy and Learning Center that I referenced earlier is where we store the vast majority of our paper copy records. And so when we do file purges there, it's most cost effective and just most efficient for us to reach out to Shred-it and ask them to deliver extra bins. Typically I've had up to, we did a very, very large project there a number of years back, and I believe I had an extra 15 or 20 bins literally lined up in a hallway in that building for use to cycle out confidential files and records. And at that point in time, they did come to the site and they did shred on site for that. So they're more than capable of kind of handling atypical or special requests when large scale needs are required. Something that we're actually looking to do here again this year at that site. So pretty easy process, kind of suffices, meets the needs, kind of creates a process so that people understand, where confidential stuff needs to go, that it needs, obviously that it needs to be shredded, and then by default ensures that it doesn't end up, in the normal recycling chain or in the trash as much as possible. So that is what I have, trying to keep it short and sweet, but happy to try to answer any questions if folks have it. But yeah, system that works for us, has for quite some time, seems to be relatively clear, and works for staff, and keeps the right stuff in the right locations as it pertains to waste management.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dan. This is great. I know Dan's districts of Farmington area public schools, as well as Dave Lake in Burnsville public schools, both have shredding services set up. I am still learning about what other districts do. So if you need support with this, please reach out to Dan, myself. We can provide guidance on maybe some things we've heard. And of course, in Dan's case, what he is doing that works well. So anybody have questions for myself or Dan on shredded paper? Kind of looking in the chat, don't see anything. Okay, perfect. And I did want to just open up really briefly. I'm going to back up here because I did have a question individually about what this looks like, which will be a really good lead-in to our next presentation on state contracts. But what is a state contract? So this is what this looks like. And Dan, his services, by all means, if you can find services that are cheaper than the state contract, go with that. But these are available if you would like to reach out to these services, and there's some, things in place where you wouldn't then have to go out for bid because it's on a state contract. So these are the vendors that are listed. There's 4 vendors. It's called this Shredding of Confidential Records contract. And there's 4 vendors listed here. And then if you keep scrolling down, you will see on here their pricing. So they actually lay it out right here on the contract. So you're able to see that. And Alison will be able to tell us more about how this process works, but they also offer shredding, it looks like, of other, different things as far as electronics and everything else too. Smaller electronic stuff, but awesome. Hope that's helpful to whoever asked that. And then our next presenter, I will go to now. So this will be Alison Cameron. I'm going to stop sharing. And while she is pulling up her screen, maybe everybody stand up and take a quick stretch break because we've already been here almost 2 hours. So we're doing good. An hour left. And I hope it's not anything that we want to end because I am having a great time personally. but I want to introduce Alison. She's already got her stuff ready to go. So we'll jump into our next presenter. Alison Cameron is a Sustainable Procurement Coordinator and Solid Waste Policy Planner at the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. She has a Bachelor's of Science from the University of Minnesota in Environmental Science and experience as a small business environmental compliance specialist at the PCA, sustainability and solid waste system analyst at Surly Brewing Company, cool, and sourcing specialist at Target Corporate. As a contributing author of the latest Solid Waste Metro Policy Plan, contributions included creative solutions to move materials up the waste hierarchy. Alison enjoys walks around South Minneapolis, picking up litter with her family and seeing the return of bees and butterflies to her new pollinator garden. So thanks, Alison, for being here.
Great, thanks, Allie. Hi, everybody. Such interesting presentation so far. So thanks to the other speakers. I'll just jump right into it. Hit the screen. There we go. All right. So what is sustainable purchasing? Let's just go through a quick history of the program. So this started at the state in the late 90s as a program known as the Environmentally Preferable Purchasing Program. And you still hear that term used sometimes. So the initial focus was on like an informal partnership we had between the PCA and the Department of Admin. The emphasis was on sourcing recycled materials, reducing toxicity, and increasing energy efficiency. That's evolved over time. We've shifted to a more holistic approach. We're looking at the bigger picture. So our focus expanded to include protection of both the planet and people. So our current perspective is that social and economic goals are interconnected. This integrated approach has enhanced the program's acceptance and success throughout the state. So conventional purchasing goals. So like I mentioned, I work with the Department of Admin, specifically with the Office of State Procurement. So their focus is really getting value for the money. We're using taxpayer dollars to buy things. So their biggest focus is obtaining the best value for the money that they spend. And they're looking to find any goods and services at the most effective cost price. And also to meet any organizational needs. So we need lots of stuff because the state does lots of stuff. And so my program brought in a few more goals to support the local economy. So we prioritize local businesses and suppliers. That strengthens and sustains the local suppliers and the local economy in Minnesota. We also promote small and diverse suppliers. So through that, we're supporting small businesses and people who may not have as much of a chance to know how to navigate the system. So we have a program to foster that inclusivity and the diversity in our supply chain. Another focus is reducing the environmental impact. So minimizing environmental harm through the prevention of waste, reducing toxicity, and looking at the whole product life cycle and its impacts. And as was mentioned in an earlier presentation, we're avoiding greenwashing. It can be really hard to fall into any misleading claims. So we take a really measured approach to make sure that we're not falling for any inaccurate claims of environmental or social goals or needs being met. So at times we have to balance the goals of the conventional purchasing and sustainable purchasing. So really integrating those together so that all of our purchases benefit both our organization and the community. All right, so last slide of just giving you the background on this. I think an iceberg is a great metaphor for talking about embedded emissions. So if you think about the impact of our purchases, think about the iceberg. The tip of the iceberg represents what we can see and measure easily. So this includes any direct emissions from transferring the product to the store or to the site of purchaser, if it's direct purchase, the energy use that goes into it, the packaging that comes in. So these are the most apparent and often the primary focus of sustainability efforts. But what we really want to uncover are those hidden impacts, all that's sitting underneath the surface of the ocean. So this is the waste generated throughout the product life cycle, through manufacturing all the way to disposal. Thinking about toxicity exposure, not just for the end product, but along the way, how are those workers being protected from any toxicity that might be in the production process? And this goes for identified and unidentified pollutants that we might not be aware yet are affecting the health and the environment. Deforestation due to raw material extraction and agricultural expansion. Are there any resource depleting activities like natural resources that are being extracted, like water and minerals? Are those being extracted in a thoughtful way? And the social impact, what are the labor practices and working conditions within that supply chain? So the reason it's important to address this whole iceberg is that while the visible emissions are more easily measured, moving past the low-hanging fruit to address the hidden impacts is crucial for a truly sustainable approach. So taking a comprehensive view of the iceberg helps us understand the full environmental and social footprint of our purchases. All right, so I'm going to get into the different product sectors. So the first thing I'd like to talk about is IT products. IT products impact energy and resource consumption throughout their entire life cycle. They're energy and resource intensive from manufacturing all the way to disposal. So something really cool that happened at the state is you'll see on the screen here in the top left corner, this box, and it has computer parts put in it. So this is called a Benson box. It's something I learned about and approached our IT department about potentially using. They already knew about it and they already came up with the money to start using this. So they worked with the manufacturers and they're working internally to figure out how these boxes can move around, like what the logistics of that is. They worked out the cost benefit of it. And so by doing this, we aren't initially receiving all of that packaging associated with the new computer, which at the state, we're on a 2-year cycle for replacement. So every 2 years, if you've bought a new laptop recently, you'll know a lot of waste is associated with that. There's little bags and styrofoam often. And so we had looked at ways to make that maybe recyclable, but this is an even better option. So it's really helped mitigate a lot of the environmental impact. So that's kind of a unique solution that we don't see in a lot of our sectors. What we really focus on are third-party certifications. So on the bottom of the screen in the middle, you'll see EPEAT and Energy Star. I'll talk about EPEAT first. This is stands for Electronic Product Environmental Assessment Tool. It recognizes electronics that meet environmental and human health standards. These are very strict. There's also ongoing monitoring of any participating brands to ensure that they're in compliance with the standards they claim to meet. And I'm sure you're all familiar with Energy Star. It's a certification for energy efficiency. All right, let's move on to facilities. So this is a big one. Oh, I didn't point this out on my last slide. Right up here in the corner on the right side, I put in links for all of the associated state contracts. So if you are a CPV member, which I'll go over later if you're not familiar with that term, you can click on any of those to look at a similar contract release that Ali showed previously. All right, so facilities, again, all the contracts on the right side. There are more, and I do have a handout with all of our state contracts that you can consider. So since the pandemic, we've become a lot more concerned with the air quality in buildings, and we came to understand that the air quality in schools and office settings are really critical for human health and environmental well-being, but they're not well monitored. So sustainable choices in building materials and furnishings also contributes to air quality and reduced environmental impact, in that there's a lot of off-gassing that happens, especially with new furnishings. And so the way we address that at the state is, again, through third-party eco-label certifications and standards. And some of my favorites for this sector, again, Energy Star, the Green Guard certification. This is something, another really strict certification to achieve. It ensures that products meet these really strict chemical emissions limits that are measured based on healthy indoor air quality. Another really great one is the Green Health Approved. This was born of out of a medical setting. So they really focused on making sure that the furnishings within a medical setting aren't adversely impacting the health of patients. And I think this is also a great certification to look for when selecting school furniture. Those little lungs and little bodies are really sensitive to those sorts of off-gassing. Another really great one is the Level certification program. This is focused specifically on furniture. So that would be desks and any sort of office equipment. Janitorial products. All right, so this is something that it took a long time for our program to get a lot of buy-in from the state because our janitorial products need to meet a very high human and environmental health standards. We need to make sure that we're not exposing, say, people at a metro transit bus stop to things like Ebola or other transmissible diseases that might be traveling in and out, as it is a point of travel. So we have to make sure that while we're looking for a more sustainable option, that these products are also top performers and actually have high kill rates. So we relied a lot on the Minnesota Department of Health. They have this guide, this great guide. It's selection of cleaners, sanitizers, and disinfectant products. It really helped us prove that bleach is not the only option, nor is ammonia for killing some of these viruses of concern. And the, excuse me, the eco labels we really depended on for this are Green Seal. You may be familiar with this, again, rigorous environmental and performance standards. And it also uses a science-based life cycle approach in its analysis of products. Safer Choice is a certification that the EPA provides. Just make sure these products are safe for people in the environment. And the UL logo is similar to what is it? Excuse me, the Green Guard. So those are put on by the same third-party certifier. So we don't need to sacrifice high sanitation standards to reduce the health impacts and increase the sustainability. So again, in the right side, I'll just point you toward a few of the contracts. One I'm particularly proud of is this polyurethane bags. Now, we don't think of polyurethane trash bags as being particularly sustainable. However, I was able to negotiate a local vendor to include recyclable content in the bags for the first time on this contract in the last year. And they have come in as being cheaper than the other bags on contract. So a huge win all around. Oh, and I did have a note on here as well. Rinse Aid got brought up. The contract for dishwashing chemicals is up for bid, and I will be reviewing all of the rinse aids and all of the other chemicals on that contract for sustainability. So if you have concerns about that, that will be dealt with this year, and then the new contract should be in place before the school year starts. Office supplies. So this is a difficult sector to get a handle on. And one of the reasons is that each vendor that provides these products has so many different types of products that are constantly being switched out or introduced or taken away. And on top of that, there aren't necessarily great third-party certifications in this field. So we focused on a few significant opportunities. For us, that was paper and toner cartridges. So paper, we have it written into state statutes that, depending on the use and the type of paper being used, certain minimum recycling content standards need to be met. And our toner cartridges must at least be offered as manufactured or remanufactured. So what that means is they take the cartridges and kind of rework them, redo the parts. They're not just refillable, unfortunately, but it's kind of the standard for reducing impact in the printer cartridge area. So another way we've addressed this is by setting policies and standards. We've established policies or standards that ensure purchases meet a minimum sustainability criteria. So for example, our agency at the PCA requires that our office paper must be at least, I don't remember what the number is, but it needs to meet a minimum paper recycling requirement. It goes above and beyond the state mandate. And a great reason to continue buying recycled paper is it creates a consistent demand for recycled content to be purchased on the recycling market. That assures that cycle continues and that recycled paper is available for other purchasers. And then the eco labels and certifications, like I mentioned, it's very limited. So just an area that's ripe for greenwashing. So be very wary when products have any sort of environmental claim in the office supply sector. It's good to make sure that they are actually being honest about what they're saying. The last sector I will go over is food service. So this is a big one. We talked about it all morning. There's just so many areas and places and avenues for just bad stuff to work its way in. So something I relied on heavily is the Center for Environmental Health's report. I have that linked in this slide. It addresses foodware toxicity and also harmful materials. I do have to say, after watching Dr. Mantravadi present at a webinar maybe a year ago, I went directly to my cabinet and pulled my son's melamine dishes out of the cabinet and threw them right away. Now he eats on all stainless. But our schools don't always have that option to just switch out so easily, as we talked about. And sometimes you have to choose other foodware options. We don't always have the ability to have reusable. So there's a few things to consider. If you are needing to choose compostable or any sort of disposable, the great thing about choosing compostable is that if it is routed properly to a compost site, it's turned into soil amendment and it reduces our reliance on landfills and waste to energy facilities. Recyclable products, it's kind of a double-edged sword. If they are clean and end up in the recycling, it can be processed into a new item and it reduces overall waste. However, if they're not routed properly, more resources often go into recyclable and compostable products. If they're ending up in the trash, it's having an overall larger environmental impact. So those are two sectors I urge buyers to be very careful about and make sure they are being properly disposed of. Reusable products are a little darling. They can be used multiple times, multiple times, and it really cuts down on single-use waste, as well as the cost and everything else associated with that. But we're aware, budget considerations. So that's why if you're not finding things on a state contract that fulfill your needs, it's great if you can go out on the open market, but I want to hear that information, especially directly from you, and I can route you to the right channels for reporting that. We as a state want to have all of the goods and services, not just the state needs, but if we can set up a CPV contract, we want that to be available. So please let us know. Another consideration is your waste hauler. Can they provide reliable organic service and pickup? And then cafeteria staff and administrative support. But people who know much more about that already went over that, so you are all aware. So a few things to be aware of as you're looking through these. A BPI compostable, so that's the biggest one. If you are getting compostable goods, they must have the BPI compostable logo to assure that they can actually be processed. This is another place where a lot of companies have come out with greenwashing. And so they'll make products look or seem compostable, but then they just end up contaminating the loads at the compost site, which has a big impact. A few other things to be aware of are the third-party certifications. Energy Star, again, is around, especially with equipment, and then fair trade. So this is more for perhaps coffee and other food sources. So again, another area to be very aware of greenwashing, avoid it. Try to find third-party certifications or any sort of verification of the claims they're making. And that can be done through either compliance tracking or lab testing. All right, lastly, I've been using this term a lot, CPV. If you're not familiar, this is Community Partner Venture. So we open up our state contracts to eligible buyers, school districts being one of them, to purchase off of the over 800 state contracts to take advantage of the lower pricing, negotiated terms, and also the contract conditions that we think through and make sure everyone's in compliance with the state regulations, federal regulations. There may be local regulations to be considerate of. So do be aware that we wouldn't be probably looking at that. However, just the leveraging the economy of scale, $2 billion gets routed through our state purchasing office each year. So through our goods and services contracts. So we can really negotiate for some great prices if you are struggling with a high priced cost item. We can also, through these state contracts, ensure that there's adherence to strict ethical and accountable public procurement standards. And also we're vetting each contract coming through for resolicitation to make sure that it's meeting any sustainability standards or taking advantage of opportunities where that's applicable. Another benefit of using these contracts is we can reduce your administrative effort and wait times you might have. We've already done the work to get a contract in place. All you need to do is just plug and play. We eliminate the need for duplicative work that we've already done negotiating fair prices with these vetted suppliers. And it will free up your administrators' time to focus on all the other challenges that are faced by your schools. So on this slide, Allie will be sharing this out. These are all active links, so you can explore the PCA resources about CPV. You can determine if you're eligible, fill out an application form, and then look through our CPV contracts. So that's all I have for today. My email's there. Feel free to give me, send an email at any time. I'm available, and I can take any questions at this time.
Amazing. Thank you, Allison. Let's see if there's any questions here. I think the only question that came up from so far in the chat, what's the best material for cutting boards home and school? That's a tough one.
There's a lot of things to consider with that. Personally, at home, I use wood, plastic. There's just, the microplastic situation, which the agency has not taken an official stance on yet. So this isn't, I'm not representing the agency in these viewpoints, but the little cuts that you can also get in plastic can really trap bacteria for growth. So I prefer wood at home, and I think it's pretty easy to sanitize as well.
Right.
Allie, I have
Awesome.
a question that I'll just say.
Yeah.
So thanks, Allison. You mentioned you ended on the information about office supplies, and I'm curious if there has been any conversation, or I'll put a little bug in your ear about how can schools make purchases for school supplies, so student school supplies, not just office supplies, because in an elementary school, our student supplies greatly outweigh what our office needs. And I'm wondering if there's anything in the work to help schools purchase more responsibly and have access to more responsible items. I think you understand what I'm asking.
Yeah, I will take a look through our office supply contract. It's innovative, and I know they have a lot of different things. And so they may have the school supplies that you seek. If that is not the case, let me take that to the team, and we'll see what we can come up with.
And then just to, just an add-on, when students are, when we have students purchase supplies, there's an enormous amount of single-use plastic and packaging. And so if there is a way to reduce that and make it cost effective, I know there are many people who are interested in that.
Yeah, I have a unique take on this because I have an incoming kindergartner for the first time. And I got to look at a sample school supply list. And when I went to go start kind of shopping around, I thought, why can't I buy the big bulk crayons and another parent buy the 24 pack of scissors? So I think there is an opportunity in that that could reduce waste, save parents money, but also I don't like the burden it puts on necessarily families that don't have the opportunity to search for the best prices. And
I'd love to share with you what Garlow Environmental Magnet School in West St. Paul is doing. It taps right into what you're saying. So maybe we can have a side conversation about that too.
I would love that. Yes, please email me.
Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing, Kim. Yeah, so state contracts, they're available for all kinds of things, compostable bags, compostable products, like we talked about, and then the recycled content plastic bags and food service supplies. I mean, just a lot of stuff to check out there. So we'll have both Alison's presentation and the handout with all the contracts on our website for the workshop following today. So thanks again, Alison. So we're next going to jump into our liquids presentation. So I'm going to share my screen here. Let's see, share. All righty. Oh, we probably want to put something up there. There we go. Okay, so I'm just going to kick us off here really quick with a few slides, and then we have a few presenters on this topic for liquids collection improvements. So this is something almost every school needs to deal with, liquids collection. I'm going to show what most schools are using currently, and then we're going to be discussing a new style of container we piloted this spring. So why is capturing liquids important? We know liquids contaminate recyclables at facilities, making paper unusable. Things filled with liquids like plastic bottles might be unable to get to their destination. They're using puffs of air sometimes to sort different materials at the recycling sorting facility, especially aluminum cans. So if that's full of liquids, it's not going to make it to where it needs to go. They also create very heavy bags, which can result in mess and torn bags and wasted resources, as well as the lifting safety issue for staff. So we really need recyclables to be empty of liquids due to all of these issues. It's not required for recyclables to be completely dry. We know that's not possible, especially for milk cartons in the cafeteria. That's okay. We just need them to be empty. So you can see examples of the labels we use for our liquids containers in schools. We have the 3x3 size, that's the drop, and then the 8.5 by 11 and 5 by 14 size with the hand. And even our school recycling labels say empty liquids, no food on the bottom. So as we dive into a few of the common container examples, you want to kind of consider some of these things. Where is liquids generated? You can do a study to kind of assess that, if needed. Where will they be emptied? That will help determine what style container you're going to want to use. Does it need to be on wheels? Do you need to be able to lift it over a counter? And then is it easy to clean? Several schools prefer to run containers through the dishwasher. So considering how they will stay clean is also important to determine your size and preference. And if your green team's involved in doing, a milk study or some sort of measurement related to liquids waste, one more sip campaigns, they'll want it to be easy to measure as well, maybe with a hand scale. So commonly in our cafeterias, this is what we're seeing. These are our school liquids container examples you've likely all seen. So majority of liquids in schools are coming from milk cartons. It's a best practice to capture liquids in the cafeteria in that order first. So liquids first, then recycling, then trash, then organics in that specific order. because they already have their milk carton in their hand when they're dumping out the liquids, and then it's recyclable. So in the cafeteria, most schools are using a 5-gallon bucket with a strainer, propped up in various ways, as you can see. Or, some schools also prefer that 20-gallon brute for liquids collection, depending on how it's being used. So, the 5-gallon bucket, they can typically stay in the cafeteria. They don't have to wheel it to a floor drain because it can be dumped down that sink and then sent through the dishwasher. But, maybe that's, not an issue with your floor drain. Maybe the water is run frequently, so you're not really worried about dumping down the floor drains like some schools with maybe old plumbing, or, if they're not used frequently enough, they can get smelly. So just thinking about that's our two models we've had forever and ever and ever. This 20-gallon brute and this 5-gallon bucket. And, they hold on to smells. The bucket a little bit less than the brute, but, that harder plastic maybe retains less. That's not a scientific basis. That's just what I've heard from schools and experienced myself. That softer plastic tend to retain more smell over time. But, these are kind of our major best practices, the ones outlined on this slide. So what we're doing now for liquids collection, always having that strainer and color-coded containers. And then lastly, the other major area in schools where we have a large quantity of liquids are breakfast in the classroom program. So we have a large use of milk cartons there. So we really want to avoid using classroom containers for sorting breakfast waste and instead having hallway stations shared between classrooms. And for both models, unless students have a classroom sink to dump liquids into and are encouraged and allowed to do so, milk cartons aren't able to be emptied, and they're contaminating the recycling with liquids, or they're ending up in the trash. So, teachers also appreciate getting that breakfast waste out of the classroom that sits there all day. So the sorting stations pictured here are ones most commonly used for breakfast hallway stations in central hallway locations, either that liquids bucket on a cart with recycling brute and however many trash containers you need, or that waste station that's pictured below with that 23-gallon Slim Jim container and the 1.75-gallon small liquids container that nestles inside the trash. If the liquids spill, then at least they end up in the trash and don't contaminate the recycling. So typically they're all on dollies and they're wheeled out of the hallway after breakfast is over. So now we're going to jump into some liquids container innovation. I know we've probably seen it at airports, businesses, or other organizations that are kind of coming up with new ideas because we need a place to dump out liquids in order to recycle right. So Pierre is a part of these innovations. He's here to share a little bit more with us about a liquids collection container we use at Minneapolis-St. Paul Airport. You may have seen it there, as well as a Dakota County high school. So I'm going to introduce Mark. Pierre established PourAway 9 years ago as a family-owned business based in Auburn, California, and all products are proudly made in the USA, with 5 patented products designed for various liquid waste levels, including proprietary microbial enzyme cleaning products. PourAway enhances environmental sustainability by reducing waste disposal costs, improving worker safety and efficiency, and ensuring compliance with EPA and state regulations. So welcome over to Mark, all the way from California.
Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay, great. Allie, thank you, and the Dakota County for inviting me to kind of share my story and so forth. I love coming behind the first slides because, boy, it's the history of where we come from and what we were first introduced to, and it's a pleasure to talk about my product after all of that. To kind of start off with, PourAway been in business for 9 years, and we are the leading manufacturer of liquid diversion in the United States. And the PourAway Cadet itself is the most sold product within our line. We've sold so far in the last 24 months, 3,000 units. Most of those went to schools. Over 400 schools throughout the United States have our product. And just as Allie said, in lineups, whether they're in the first position, obviously, but whether it's just 1 stream, 2 streams, 3 streams, or 4 streams, depending on where you live in the United States, these products have been placed. in the schools, in the airports, as Ali mentioned, in convention centers, in zoos, in museums, in theaters, any place that needed a product to be able to get the liquid out of the waste stream. Kind of to talk about the versatility of the product, we didn't take a product off the shelf and kind of try to modify it to make do. For 4 months, I worked with the custodians at Alison Unified School District in Northern California and the custodians at Oakland Airport. And what we did is we made 6 iterations of this product to be able to come up with a solution that was not only effective first and foremost for a custodian, but also could eclipse different or lapse over different environments, such as a school or such as a crazy busy environment collecting liquid like an airport. And I won't go into all the subtleties there about why it is the way it is. We can talk about that offline. But some of the key elements that you need to take are really that the PourAway Cadet really provides you a mobile sink for your campus. And that comfort of it being something that children and adults are very comfortable with are something that helps to perpetuate the adoption. And by the unit having a J-trap on the inside, like your sink in your bathroom, prevents smells and things from coming out. And when we worked with the custodians, what we wanted to do was to be able to make sure that the children poured their drinks or into the cadet and then moved along. We didn't want it to be a bottleneck. So features like smells and things might have stopped children to go, oh, what's that smell? Or, oh, what's this? Why does it look like that? The design allowed them to maybe at first kind of take stock of what it looked like, but there was no real reason for them to linger over it, whether it was splashing or again, the smells. So that was a key component to having it in this line. Some of the features that they have are, and I'm watching the slides go by. Some of the features that are valuable to the custodians are the mere fact that it has capacity to be able to collect up to 25 gallons. Most schools will probably do 4 or 5 gallons, but it's better to overkill in this situation, so that the custodians or whomever is working the food services doesn't have to babysit any of this. They want to be able to set it up before the children come through, and then leave it alone until the end of the food service for breakfast or lunch or whatever programs you have. And the Cadet not only does that, has a strainer, so it's not going to clog, but it's easy to move around. It was built on a commercial deck. Each wheel can hold about 125 pounds. So the unit itself is not something that is fragile or is not designed for a commercial situation. We're in 45 airports, so if we had seen issues with any type of the design, it would have popped up. But the ability to be able to collect that liquid, move it ergonomically for the custodians to wherever you're going to drain it, whether it's a floor drain there or it's in the custodial closet, was really critical when we did the initial design. What happened at a certain point was we realized that organics were building up inside of the tank. We first noticed this in the airports because they collected a lot of liquid. Their union members were also judged on the cleanliness of everything, windows and the PourAway Cadet. So when we saw this buildup, we partnered with a company that is a supplier for Ecolabs, and they designed an organic microbial enzyme puck that sits inside of the unit. It slowly dissolves over 30 days. And then that microbial enzyme solution not only eats the organic buildup that may happen inside of the PourAway Cadet, but every time you drain it, it not only eats what's in the drain, but goes down your drain and also eats any of the organic buildup all the way out to the street. So we found that not only a win for our product, but a win for the schools who are pouring this liquid down the drains and not understanding that as long as it's dark and as long as it has food, organic is going to build up like, and it's going to grow like coral under the ocean if it has the proper elements to grow. And slowly you're just going to close up your drains. Trying to think if I can. I think more valuable to you folks will be question and answer at the end. I think that I wanted to really capture the fact that for 9 years we've been doing one specific thing, which is collecting liquid diversion or collecting liquid organics. We've been recognized, mentioned earlier on. A lot of the recyclables are really critical to be clean or to be dry, not necessarily clean. And this is really a helpful way of being able to do that. It's sort of like it's a real valuable tool to the custodians, and that's where we wanted to get our first buy-in. You don't want to set them up for injury. It's really hard to, cost-wise and manpower-wise, it's really hard to find replacements for a custodian that's may have slipped because the bucket of liquid that they had leaked or poured over and somebody stepped in it. You really want a container that encloses everything in, allows your custodian to push it into their process, and then have a safe and easy way of emptying it out as they take it.
Mark, can I play the video? Do you want me to play the video now? Is that is this a good time for it?
Sure.
Okay, awesome. Let me know if you can hear sound. Maybe just give me a heads up or a thumbs up, I mean.
I heard there's this really handsome guy that does this video too, so.
Yeah, this guy's gonna look familiar.
I'm very excited.
Can you hear it?
Move all that liquid. The PourAway Cadet was built on an industrial deck. Wheels, steel hub casters, all rated at 125 pounds each. This unit can hold up to 500 pounds of liquid without having any problem at all. Now, we've got all that liquid. How do we empty it? The PourAway Cadet comes with a drain hose that's attached to an oil pan bottom, the lowest point in the whole unit. This tube is nested in a channel, so it's not going to fall out when you're rolling it around. Simply take the tube out, take the cap off, open up the ball valve, and drop that right into the custodial sink. A vacuum will start, the whole unit will drain. We enlisted the help of some chemical engineers, and those chemical engineers designed a microbial enzyme puck. That puck sits in our holder. The holder sits back in the tank, and it'll assist the custodians in keeping this unit clean for 6 to 8 weeks until the puck dissolves. So I hope all this information gives you a little bit of insight into this product. Feel free to reach out to our.
Awesome.
I gotta
Awesome
hire that guy.
product.
He does a much
Awesome
better job than
video.
I do.
I thought it was a fun video. I love that. And it's nice because the unit has a QR code right on the back that'll bring you to multiple videos on all that, on the maintenance and everything else that you need to know, which is so helpful.
So the last part of this is we're continuing to innovate, and we're continuing to watch the market as it develops. We've been tasked or reached out to by actually a few of the companies that you saw their liquid diversion cabinets in the intro to my slides from Allie to bring in our liquid diversion components within their cabinets. So as an example, this is a cabinet that we were designed for quick serve restaurants. And it's simply on the same premise of what we're doing. Has a little roller tank that goes inside. There's a sink, there's a J-trap, there's a strainer, which you can't see in there. And then you can have your cabinet designed with 1, 2, or 3 streams, or just one stream in addition to that, and then add cabinets on as your program develops. This has been Villanova University just bought 10 of these cabinets. LMU was looking at the cabinets on top of all your quick serve restaurants. So Harvard and Princeton are looking at it. They have our cadets right now. So it's a real nice way of knowing that we're not just resting our laurels on a cadet. We actually believe in certain instances that the cadet is kind of a gateway product because of its mobility and because of its capacity. It allows you to be able to test and go to different places and get an idea of where the best locations are to capture liquid. Once that is adopted, then maybe a permanent fixture of a cabinet might be the right solution if your cafe in your school is something that isn't multiple use rooms and things like that. So just to kind of reiterate, we're just moving along in that liquid diversion lane. And we've also seen a lot of interest in the past 6 months for reusable cups. And we've seen this in different stadiums, Climate Pledge Arena. In Petaluma, the city itself has placed these reusable cup collection units all over the city. So if you go to Burger King and you walk out and you have a cup, it's a reusable cup. If you go into Starbucks, you have a reusable cup. If you go into the theater, you have a reusable cup and you can walk out with them. And they've placed these all over the city as a pilot project to see how people would respond to taking those cups, putting them in a place and then reusing them. So we have a product that's in conjunction with that task as well. So I want to open it up to questions if you have any now, or this is the information. If you have any questions that you'd like to ask offline, I'm happy to address it as you kind of digest how this might work in your environment.
Great. Thank you so much, Mark. Has anybody seen this PourAway cadet container at the airport or anywhere else before? Maybe raise your hand if you've seen that. Just use the raise hand function. And I think some of the questions, I did see a question on how it's cleaned. I think that, so we have one more presenter left to go. So maybe if we hear from the school in Dakota County that is piloting the cadet container, then we can maybe get all of our questions compiled for both Mark and Meghan and Tim. So I will just jump over to their presentation, because next we're going to be hearing from Two Rivers High School in West St. Paul, Mendota Heights, Eagan Area School District 197. This is the first school in Dakota County we purchased the PourAway Cadet Liquids container for through their grant last spring as a pilot. And we have both Tim and Meghan joining us. So Tim Kulseth is the building engineer at Two Rivers High School, and it is his 4th year in the district as a building engineer. He has worked in school districts since 2007 and has 11 years of military service. Meghan Bernard is a sustainability manager for the school district, and it's her 5th year in this position. She previously worked as an amazing waste consultant for Dakota County, working with schools and businesses. So thanks so much for being here, and take it away, Tim and Meghan.
Thanks, Allie.
Thank you.
So our problem was, how do we get the milk out of the waste stream at our high school? We're using these 32-gallon brutes. And I'm going to turn over to Tim because he has a lot more in-depth knowledge of how this worked. But, the issues that we were having was, They're difficult to keep clean. They are difficult to empty. So that led to them not being emptied on a regular basis. We would line them with trash bags to keep the liquid contained. And then really no way to get the milk cartons emptied enough to keep them from really stinking up the dumpsters. We are dumping loose, which was a little bit of a change for us in the past few years. We used plastic bags for our milk cartons, and that was really the last stronghold, was dumping the milk cartons loose. So last year, all of our schools started that of no more plastic bags whatsoever for milk cartons. And it does end up with, there is more liquid in the recycling dumpsters when you are not using bags whatsoever. But yeah. Anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, we used to have 3 of the 32-gallon liquid containers, and just with our cafeteria layout, it didn't make sense to have 3 and wheel them around the school to try to empty these out, which is kind of why we went to the trash bags. Then we cut them open, and it was just a huge mess. So that's kind of why we got moved on from those, I'd say.
And we also found that with 3 weigh stations, it was really hard for us to oversee them, that have staffing those areas, because there was just so many, and 3 lunches. And since those had been in place for a while, it kind of was up to the student whether they were going to dump out their liquids or not. And typically what we saw was less dumping, more just either recycling it with a full milk carton or putting it in the trash.
Yes, we purchased this with the grant. I'm just going to go over the kind of the positives that we've noticed here. Obviously, the color for us, the yellow, it's huge. I kind of feel like our old system, it just wasn't bright enough. It didn't really get, a lot of use, I'd say. There's a lot of times where there was hardly anything in there at all. And that could have been because of our layout a little bit, but since we've got the PourAway, we have kind of built around it, and that's definitely helped. I have noticed, it's taller than the can, so it's a little bit easier, I think, for people to really see it, and it's yeah. And then
Can I say something? The reason, and I apologize for interrupting you, but you pointed out something that was really important, and it was requested by the custodians. When they have buckets, the children would do waterfalls, and they would take their cups and they would hold them really high to make the liquid splash. And what the custodians wanted was, they wanted a tall unit so that the children couldn't raise their arm up high to make it splash, even though we have a strainer that prevents from the splash. To have it at a higher height allowed them to pour it directly in, like in a sink. So it was one of the big things that they wanted, because originally it was short, and they said no. They go, the buckets were a real problem because of that specific issue. I apologize for that, but that was something that's really important to know.
No, yeah, that's a good thing to touch on. Yeah, we have not experienced the splashback, as you say. And then it's still, even though it is a little higher, I haven't had any issues here with our ADA accessibility. They seem to be good with it.
Yeah, it was ADA compliant, but go on. Thank you.
Yeah, and it works well here. I've seen it be used, and they don't have an issue. Obviously, the strainer keeps the bigger particles out, but I did want to touch on the actual finish of the strainer. I do wish that it was more of a stainless, because it's the brush material. I have noticed that it is a little bit prone to some staining, even with the spray. It's not really building up, but it is kind of staining. So
like chocolate milk.
Chocolate milk, yeah.
And in talking with PourAway, one thing I did note, I wanted to tell you, Tim, they have redesigned. So I think we purchased the model prior, maybe Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, prior to, or purchased it early in 2024. I think it was or late 2023. So since talking to the sales team, it sounds like they have updated it per your feedback. So that's really good.
Yes. we now have a strainer that's totally stainless steel, so there is no staining. We noticed it, a big issue was at the airports because of the volume of liquid and different liquids coming in. But that is eliminated, and we have, when you're ready to replace your strainers, we have ones that you'll be able to get. And because you already had that one, we offer a discount for it so that you have something that'll solve that issue. But 3 years, and that's really the only issue that we found, which was the pH in the liquids rises. And what happens is, because of that rise in pH, it stained the aluminum. We've gone to all stainless steel now, and that doesn't happen.
Perfect. All right. And yeah, like I mentioned earlier, we did revamp our sorting area with new signage and kind of built around our liquids, as that's kind of like the beginning of our line, and then it funnels out. So you can skip our video because Mark's video was super good. We can move on to the next.
Yep.
Oh, I'm talking
so
with
the
my mate
maintenance
on. I was gonna
process,
say it's linked here for people to watch later because I think it's cool to see your system.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, maintenance process, obviously, you know, Mark touched on the QR scan. That's pretty simple. If you really have any questions at all, you can always scan it, and it'll bring you to there. But you know, we empty it and rinse it every day. I'm sure it says that in there. We did test it out where we didn't do that, and you can't do that with milk. I'm not going to say we did that on purpose. I think that was more of a whoops, but you cannot do that with milk. Small and portable, the locking casters make it easy so that, you know, when you are emptying it, it's not going to roll away on you if you're on a little slope or, you know, whatever you're dumping it into. The drain tube works really well. Again, as long as you do the daily maintenance, it's super simple. And then the cleaning spray, effective for eliminating any buildup or possibility of. Just the overall cleaning process of this is I think a lot easier than our 32 gallon. It's really effortless. It doesn't take much to do it, and that puck really does help out quite a bit with keeping things not, you know, adding up in there. Yeah.
Well, Tim, I think it's important to let them know too that we put into a floor drain when you drain that tubing, because like the tubing is lower than a slop sink. The slop sink is higher. So we found a location that had a floor drain that was near a water source. So when Tim goes to empty it, or another custodian does, you know, putting that drain into the floor drain, putting that tube into the floor drain and then draining the water. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, I just rinse it out with
Rinsing out with water. Yeah. Yep.
And Tim, if one of the things that's on the video, the QR code, if you look at the fill tube, and the fill tube is 1 inch above your custodial wall around your custodial sink, just 1 inch. And if you have to add a little water in it, it doesn't hurt because it dilutes the puck more and it works to clean your drain. But if you're 1 inch higher than that, when you open that ball valve and you drop that hose in there, a suction or a siphon will start, and you won't have to go to that floor drain and drain it. You can drain it right there. And again, the key is a siphon start. And a siphon start is if the liquid in your Cadet is 1 inch higher than that wall, and you won't have any problem.
Oh, okay.
Good to know. We'll try that.
Yeah, then just some takeaways with our process here. You know, we've improved our collection process and reduced contamination. Let's see. What does that one mean?
Well, for us, we really felt that since we were introducing, we also introduced metal utensils with this project. So we consolidated our 3 sorting areas to 1, and we staffed it. So between Tim, myself, and other custodians, someone is at this weigh station, a staff member is at the weigh station to help direct students. And that with the video that we showed before they went to lunch was helpful. But just putting it out there on its own, I don't think, I mean, you can try it, but I think having a staff person there to help ensure that the kids learn the process is pretty important.
Well, at least it was for us. I mean,
Yeah.
I feel like we were struggling before. with our stations, our multiple stations, and now cleaning it up and just having one with the PourAway in the center, it works out pretty well. And
this was also part of improving our organics collection, because what we were having was everybody was just tossing their compostable trays in the trash, and we were getting very little recyclables. And so this push, I mean, we are definitely collecting way more organics with way less contamination. But it was a challenge for us to take that ownership of being there for that lunch period. And it's, you know, a lot of communication from us, but we do feel like it's improving the collection system and the quality of our recyclables and organics.
well, and with that, you know, I'm gonna guess that we're collecting probably 5 times the amount of liquid that we were before. Because
Right.
we were virtually, I mean, we were still getting some, but really not a whole lot. And so, you know, having that thing there has been, it's a lot easier.
And I mean, by doing this, we went from basically back of house organics, like 3 yards once a week, to 8 yards a week of organics. And we reduced our trash from 16 yards to 8 yards. So, I mean, it was pretty significant.
Yeah, and we have, what, 1,600 kids go through lunch here, so.
Yep.
There you go.
And that's just a picture of our carts. So our wash area is actually on the complete other side of the cafeteria. So we just have black bins that we collect the utensils in. We tried putting water in them, but they just were splashing a lot. So, and they're kind of heavy. So we just have empty bins that we put the dirty utensils in, with a picture of spoons and one of forks. People like to sort, especially kids. So like, it's surprising. Everybody pretty much tries to put them in the right place. And, you know, that's been fun to see that actually works. So then we just bring that back to get washed after the lunch period.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right. Amazing. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can see the chat. Thank you so much, Tim, Megan, Mark. I think we're open for questions now. Jeannie, are you just raising your hand from when I asked, let me know if you've seen this at the airport, or do you have a question? I'm gonna assume maybe it's just up there. So feel free, unmute yourself if you have one. I saw one question in the chat of how is the container cleaned? So I don't know if someone wants to take that. I know there is a maintenance video, Sean, so I could definitely send that your way.
Yeah, the microbial enzyme puck that sits, microbial enzyme puck that sits in the tank itself really cleans the view tube in front and any buildup that goes on inside. And the microbial enzyme spray, which is a liquid version of the solid microbial enzyme puck, can be sprayed on the pan, or if you have a dishwasher on site, the pans are all dishwasher safe. You just take that strainer and you put it in there, run it through as you would run any other utensils at the end of the night, and it's clean and good to go. I go into airports here, LAX, or when I go to Oakland Airport, and the things look like they just came out of the box because microbial enzyme pucks are in them. The pucks are like $7 and last 4 to 6 weeks, depending on the usage. And for a whole school year, it's like $98, and that thing is really taken care of as far as cleaning.
So just Dan Miller from Farmington. So just to confirm, so you guys don't, so you don't rinse them out. You just drain them, or?
You know, I put the microbial enzyme puck in there. I do rinse them, and Tim may say the same thing. I think it's more habit of the custodian to do it than it's required, but they just rinse everything. They'll wipe out the outside and they'll rinse the inside. Again, more by their existing process than something that you have to do. But the liquid ebb and flow inside of it really dilutes the puck. And as the liquid rises and then goes down, it coats the sides and eats the organic there. And if you see that for maybe a summer program that you're really not going as high as you were before, and you might see some organic buildup in the tube. Just once or twice of just filling in a little extra water in there to making sure that that organic is coated by the dilution will eliminate anything that you would see in there.
Yeah, Tim, I think you're muted. Do you have, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I've had to do with the summer program is we just put a little bit of water, extra water in there so that that does get the coating. But even then, you know, I think it's just, you know, like Mark was saying, it really is kind of more of a habit to rinse it out. You know, we haven't tried it where we don't rinse it out, but I just do.
Right.
Yeah, and most custodians will do the same thing.
Right.
And Tim, would you say the change was difficult to make? Would you say you'd go back to what you had before? Do you like what you're using now better? Like, how do you feel about the overall changeover?
Although I mean, it's so easy to use. I wouldn't go back to 32-gallon buckets. And then, you know, the other, like when I was at the elementary schools years ago now, we did have like the little 5-gallon ones. You know, I think Mark had a picture of, or you did, or somebody had a picture of that kind of setup. And, you know, like those can fall over, and I've seen that happen before. No, I don't think I'd go back. It's just, it's on wheels. It's easy to clean.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
That's
The
it.
wheels are nice.
You know, when I sit and I talk to boards, I've stressed the simple fact of risk reduction for the custodians, how much it costs to replace somebody, how much does it cost when somebody has to take a leave of absence. It really rings true to them that there is a value to that. And the simple fact that you can now, instead of babysitting those buckets, you can take a custodian and he can go to a higher value task that's within his day of work, rather than having to visit once or twice, or God forbid, clean up a spill or something like that. That's hours, you know, and a little line of liquid out. It's just, I could go on and on and on. But Tim, it's as I'm sure you see, it just a change of process, but it does loosen up your folks for other tasks.
Yeah, and I get pulled out of my cafeteria all the time. So it's
There you
definitely
go.
something. It's nice. Just, I don't have to worry about it.
Right. Well, this is awesome to hear about. I'm excited. We did purchase one for another elementary school in Lakeville that's opening up for the first time this fall. So then we'll have 2 cadets that we're going to be piloting in Dakota County now. So yeah, feel free to reach out to Mark, reach out to Tim and Megan with more questions on this container, and I'm sure more liquids improvements to come. And I did put a link of the cabinet container Mark was talking about in the presentation, so people can go see that too.
Allie, is it appropriate to mention the price? Because everybody kind of want to know a price, or do you want to take that off?
Or did Megan and Tim, you had that on your slide, right? It was around, is it $600?
Well, they listed it at 7. I was going to ask that question
okay.
too. So if you do,
Well,
I see on the website you can request a quote, but I was just curious.
No.
What it is.
So the units, and I don't know how many were purchased. That may have been 2, and shipping. But the units are for retail price on the units, and you can see them on the internet, as $4.99. We have a really close relationship with anything associated with education, whether it's the schools, museums, aquariums, zoos, and there's a educational discount, and the units are $4.69. And that educational discount also applies to the microbial enzyme pucks and the sprays. So you folks are our bread and butter. And I can't tell you how many schools I've visited and revisited just to make sure everything is right. But it is such a change in what goes on in food services when you do it. You just have no idea. Just the psychological win of a child pouring the liquid in and having that, oh, I know where that goes, not a blue can, a green can, a red can, pouring it in and going, oh, psychological win. Now what do I do with this milk carton? Now what do I do with this? And then it goes on. So it's almost like a gateway to recycling. And that's why most people put it in the first position, because it's that, and then you get a win, you go on. So sorry, I would just talk about price, but I'm kind of passionate about.
I had it. So for 2 Rivers, they actually paid $400. I have the quote because I paid for it. $400 for the Cadet. $89 for a box of 12 enzyme biobox for the cleaning, and then $8 for the hard surface spray cleaner at the time. So it was a total of $656, including the shipping and that cost. So that was back, you know, over 6 months ago. So that included the cleaners as well.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It is, there was a small increase. It's $469, but yes.
Yep. Yep.
Still cheaper than a retail price.
Right. All right. Well, thank you all for that. And just enough time for me to go through a few resources per usual. So I'm sharing my screen here if it'll let me. Okay. There we go. Awesome. And I did see Alison made a comment. Maybe it'd be a good opportunity for a state contract for liquids containers. That'd be kind of cool. So maybe more to come on this. So for resources, oh yeah, for resources, I'm just gonna breeze through quickly. I know we have a little over 5 minutes. That's why I always put myself at the end, because I know we know a lot of this stuff. So shout out to Lincoln Center Elementary. That's who's pictured on this slide. So we have free labels, posters, activity guides available to schools. I think we're all aware of our online order form, but that is linked here. The materials are sent and mailed directly to your school. So you just fill that out and you can get free posters, labels, activity guides at any time in various sizes. We have school training resources. So all schools in Dakota County are now required to provide standardized recycling education at least once a year to every school person, so staff, student, etc. And so we have great training resources, newsletter templates, presentations with talking points available to help meet those requirements. So that's kind of a link to that webpage and folder with all that information. And of course, we're creating new things all the time. So cafeteria banners, we have these available. We've used these in cafeterias for, you know, hanging behind waste stations. We've made them in the past with vinyl, with grommet holes in that size. But if that sizing doesn't work for you, we can definitely work on a different size or type of signage. And then all school stadiums we've worked with in our grant program since we revamped it in 2020 to include outdoor spaces, because all trash containers are required to be paired with recycling, including those outdoors in Dakota County, paired and labeled. So these banners are offered as a free educational resource outside of grant funds for school stadiums we've worked with. So this one is for Farmington High School. We've also worked with St. Thomas Academy and Rosemount High School that all got banners printed. And we're working with Egan High School this fall. So that's another resource. We have a contact list online checkout system available for portable containers and education kits. You can see the portable recycling and trash containers pictured here, as well as our recycling education kit. We have many more materials available. So if your school is hosting a community event on site without enough containers, or you need tabling resources, or both, you can check these out for free on our webpage and just scroll through all the things that we have there. And that link is in this slide that will be on our webpage. You can explore. So these containers are available for outdoor events. Mostly they're typically used there, but if it's a school fair or a barbecue, or maybe it's your own personal grad party, these resources are available. And then we have performances and field trip busing available to schools. So Dakota County provides waste education to enhance student and staff recycling knowledge. So we have free performances for K-3 students, where Trisha and the Toonies come and do interactive experiences with puppet characters on reducing our waste and recycling more. And then field trip busing allows students and staff to visit recycling facilities, landfills, and compost sites to see the equipment and stuff, technology in action, and where our materials end up. So that is available as a resource. We also have grants. We know that nearly 80% of school waste is recyclable or compostable. So we want to provide assistance to schools to reduce wasted food, reduce waste, divert recycling and food scraps from the trash. So all of those things are kind of covered in our grant program. And please reach out to me if you're interested in kind of learning more about that, or you have an idea. We have $10,000 large project grants, as well as mini grants for $1,000 available year round. and I think we've worked with, it looks like 55% of all schools K through 12 in Dakota County since our program began in 2009. That number is not reflective of the schools and partnerships that have come in multiple times, because you can come in for different grant initiatives. So we also have a school e-news. If you're not already receiving it, I recommend signing up. It's just 4 times a year with different information, maybe about this workshop, as well as other projects and spotlights on schools. We provide free compost delivery to school recycling program participants with an organics collection program. We did that for the 4th consecutive year this year. And we had 17 schools participate. We offer 1 to 5 cubic yards of compost soils. And then this helps them be able to use that in vegetable and flower gardens, on-site plantings, potted plants, lawn repair, and prairie restoration areas. So we continue that program. We also talked about a spotlight on this program last year, but we have free vape disposal resources available. So we provided kits to our schools in Dakota County. We had a 2022 survey that went out, learning from schools. What do you currently do with vapes? Realized that we need some support in that area. And so vape devices are a regulated hazardous waste. They can't go in the trash or recycling. So all public school districts, secondary schools, middle and high schools have received a free vape disposal kit. And then for public charter schools and private schools and elementaries, they're provided to those interested. So 47 kits have been distributed, and we've so far collected 664 devices. So that's a resource. And then a new resource for this year, we have a free graduation yard sign collection happening at our Western Service Center in Apple Valley. So we did put a call out to all high school principals this spring to share with students and parents with a social media blurb and email they could send. But if you know of anyone that has grad signs that they need for recycling, they can't go in your regular recycling, but we are hosting a special recycling event for these that they'll be taken up to Choice Plastics in Mound, Minnesota. It's a specialty recycler in Minnesota, and we are hosting the bin until August 15th. So spread the word. And then we also have our recycling guide tool. So this is available on our website, linked here. It's an online searchable directory. So if you have a question on an item, type it in, and it will help you know where to go with that item. Otherwise, you can suggest we add it if it's not there already. And then this is just our webpage. It's a great resource to start. Order free labels and everything else I've talked about today. So please reach out to me if you have questions. Let me know what new resources maybe you'd like to see. And we made it. Awesome. So remember, recycling is not sorted out of the trash. There's this misconception floating around that recycling can be put in the same container and it will later be sorted. That is false. So if things are going in the recycling, they are going to a recycling sorting facility per Minnesota state law. And if they're going in the trash, they're likely heading to a landfill. We don't have many waste to energy opportunities here in our county. So thank you so much for joining our 10th annual school recycling workshop. Don't make the sloth work so hard. Let's keep our containers paired, right? Like I know we're all doing a great job in our school. So there's going to be a few minute survey sent to you this week to get your feedback on the workshop and improve future workshops. And then, like I said, here's my email. If you'd like CEU credits, continuing education credits, please reach out to me. I'm going to try to look through the chat. I think a few people had messaged me, but if you want to for sure know I got it, send me an email because there's 3 clock hours available, and I'll send those to you gladly. And all workshop presentations and the recording, again, will be posted on our webpage following this workshop. So thank you so much. I'll be sticking around if anyone has questions, but reach out to our presenters, reach out to me, and thanks so much for your time today. I'll stop sharing my screen here so I can see your faces. Have a good day.